Chapter 1497. At this moment, Yi Xian's earth-shaking Tongtian cultivation had finally stabilized his foundation in the immortal realm. This was also the reason why he had the confidence to return to the Grand Central Territory. Grand Central Territory, I'll be back soon. Yi Xian murmured as a cruel smile appeared on his face. At this moment, Yi Xian's thoughts were in a mess. He thought of some people and wondered how they were doing in the Grand Central Territory after so many years. Yuan Ling, Luo Ho, and even the extreme love master who married him. There were also those eternal paragons, the undying heaven lord, the heaven-devouring demon master. These eternal paragons had gone too far. Some wanted to kill him, some wanted to use him, and some wanted to befriend him. Yi Xian didn't forget any of these. Yi Xian remembered those who wanted to kill him. He was someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. The undying heaven lord, and the others were already on his death list. Yi Xian also wanted to repay the space-time master and extreme love masters, help one by one. This was because he had always been a person who would repay kindness with kindness. This was the case in the past, now, and in the future. Of course, there was also one person who Yi Xian missed dearly. The first person he wanted to see when he returned to the Grand Central Territory would definitely be this person. Lu Bai. His clothes were as white as snow, and he was an eternal genius. During the great battle between the eternal paragons, Lu Bai came with a forbidden black flag. He didn't fear the eternal paragons. Yi Xian would never forget this brotherly love. Looking at the entire universe and looking back at the past, only Lu Bai was his true friend. Brother Bai, I wonder how you are doing now. Yi Xian stood in the starry sky with his hands behind his back as he looked at the Grand Central Territory. His deep eyes rippled slightly as he recalled that snow-white figure. Grand Central Territory, Heaven-Mending Sect. A figure sat cross-legged on top of the dome. Rays of spiritual light wrapped around his body. His white robe was spotless. Dark clouds gathered in the sky from time to time, and terrifying lightning bolts struck down on him. However, none of them could hurt him at all. Disperse. Lu Bai slowly opened his eyes and uttered a single word. The terrifying dark clouds quickly dispersed, and Tongtian's earth-shaking chaotic spirit light fell down, drowning him completely. Lu Bai stood up from the chaotic divine light. He looked like a living god in the mortal world. Although there was no aura around him, when he opened and closed his eyes, the heaven and earth were distorted. The aura of the immortal realm caused the heaven and earth to tremble. Good. Suddenly, a burst of excited laughter could be heard. A figure appeared beside Lu Bai and looked him up and down excitedly. How many heavenly gates have you opened? Sect Master Butian was so excited that he was trembling. He looked at Lu Bai with hope, hoping that Lu Bai would give him a pleasant surprise. Boom, boom, boom. The void trembled, and ripples spread out. One after another, heavenly gates opened behind Lu Bai. A total of 6 heavenly gates appeared behind Lu Bai, buzzing and swaying behind him. You actually opened the 6th gate of heaven? How is this possible? Sect Master Butian looked at Lu Bai in shock. His face was filled with disbelief. The last time he saw Lu Bai had just stepped into the immortal realm. However, in such a short time, Lu Bai had opened 6 heavenly gates. He was only one step away from opening the 7th. He couldn't believe it. Even though Sect Master Butian knew that Lu Bai had a chaotic spirit body, he couldn't believe this cultivation speed. The chaotic spirit body was known as the #1 battle body of all time. It was the darling of the chaotic universe. No matter what kind of secret art it was, it could be learned immediately. Moreover, it didn't face any calamities, nor did it have any so-called restrictions. To put it bluntly, as long as the chaotic spirit body was born, it was destined to become the strongest of all time. Moreover, it would be the strongest of the 12 strongest. Even the Master of Chaos would be ranked behind it. However, Sect Master Butian wasn't an ignorant person. He knew that the chaotic spirit body's aptitude was terrifying, but it was absolutely impossible for it to be this terrifying. Lu Bai's cultivation speed was simply too fast. It was so fast that it surpassed the potential of the chaotic spirit body. Even the Master of Chaos definitely didn't have such a cultivation speed back in the day. The difference between them was like heaven and earth. Unfortunately, Lu Bai didn't pay any attention to Sect Master Butian's shock. He only said indifferently, "Have you heard anything about Brother Yi?" Sect Master Butian suddenly came to his senses. He temporarily suppressed the shock in his heart and shook his head with a bitter smile. He already died in that battle back then. Why do you think he's still alive? Brother Yi won't die. Lu Bai's expression was calm. However, his eyes were deep and calm. His words were powerful and resonant. He's already dead. That was a battle of the strongest of all time. Even the undying Heaven Lord announced his death. How could he still be alive? Sect Master Butian frowned. You'll never understand. If he's dead, I'll sense it. I feel like he's watching me from afar. I can also sense that he's about to return, Lu Bai said with a heavy voice. Bai, don't be so stubborn. He really is dead. Right now, your only mission is to become the strongest of all time. Only by becoming the strongest of all time can you avenge him, Sect Master Butian advised earnestly. I said he's not dead. Boom. The 6 heavenly gates rotated terrifyingly. A pitch-black ancient mirror appeared in Lu Bai's hand. An extremely terrifying aura pressed down on Sect Master Butian. The terrifying killing intent surged out from Lu Bai's body, causing Sect Master Butian to retreat in shock. He looked at Lu Bai with fear in his eyes. Alright. He's not dead. I'll send people to continue looking for him. As soon as there's news, I'll tell you immediately, Sect Master Butian consoled. Whoa. White clothes fluttered in the wind. Lu Bai's killing intent dissipated. The black ancient mirror in his hand also disappeared. He looked in the direction of the northern star domain. A mysterious light flashed through his eyes. Brother Yi, I know you're coming back. I'll wait for you here. I really don't have much time left. Lu Bai murmured. A trace of melancholy flashed through his eyes. He let out a long sigh. Seeing Lu Bai remain silent, Sect Master Butian silently retreated. His hanging heart finally calmed down. Just now, he was really afraid that Lu Bai would attack him. In Sect Master Butian's eyes, after so many years, Lu Bai had become more and more strange. Needless to say, his cultivation speed was terrifying to the extreme. He didn't dare to let Sect Master Butian believe him. What surprised Sect Master Butian the most was that Lu Bai cultivated the heaven-mending art. However, he couldn't sense any aura of the heaven-mending art from Lu Bai. Moreover, after so many years, Lu Bai always had all kinds of strange things in his hands. These things were extremely terrifying. Each of them had unimaginable power. Even Sect Master Butian felt a sense of death when he saw these things. For example, the black ancient mirror in Lu Bai's hand. This thing always made him feel a sense of fear. It even made him smell the scent of death. Sect Master Butian had investigated the origins of these things. However, he couldn't find any clues. It was as if these things just appeared in Lu Bai's hands out of thin air. This kind of strange thing made his scalp numb. However, he couldn't find any useful clues. Moreover, every time he saw Lu Bai, Sect Master Butian felt a sense of reverence. This feeling of reverence was very sudden. It made Sect Master Butian feel extremely terrified and uncomfortable. He was a peak Immortal Realm expert. He was an overlord in the Grand Central Domain. However, he felt more and more reverence towards Lu Bai. This feeling was very strange. It was as if there was a difference in cultivation level. AI. Sect Master Butian sighed softly and quickly disappeared. No matter what secrets Lu Bai had, it was enough as long as he could become the next Yuanhui era's strongest. Chapter 1498. Snow Bamboo Peak. Yi Xian stood motionless on the peak of the peak. His gray hair was scattered behind his head, and his clothes were fluttering in the wind. When he opened and closed his eyes, they were as vast and mysterious as the universe. Although there was no aura around him, he gave people a feeling that they couldn't look at him directly. Congratulations, Hierarch, for breaking into the Immortal Realm. Streaks of rainbow light shot out from all directions and landed on the Snow Bamboo Peak. In just a few breaths of time, there were more than 10 people in total, and they all knelt on the ground as praises came from their mouths. All of them were at the Immortal Realm. Although their cultivation bases were generally not high, with the highest cultivation base being only at the level of Taoist Green Ghost, who had opened the second heaven gate. Having over 10 Immortal Realm experts was indeed shocking. This was definitely a top-notch lineup in the northern region. Sir, you're out of seclusion? Fatty Huang and Gu Beichen rushed over when they heard the news. Their faces were filled with excitement as they bowed towards Yi Xian. How long did it take me to cultivate this time? Yi Xian had just returned to Snow Bamboo Peak. He didn't know how long it took him to break through to the Immortal Realm, but according to Yi Xian's estimation, it should have taken him a long time. Comprehending the small cauldron, practicing the calamity transformation, passing the third calamity of eternity, and then refining the law eye of destruction, should have taken him a long time. Sir, it's been 3 million years since you started your seclusion. Fatso Huang hurriedly replied. 3 million years? Yi Xian was startled. He didn't expect it to take him so long. However, Yi Xian felt relieved the next moment. After all, his seclusion this time was no small matter. He had experienced many things. 3 million years seemed to be a long time, but it was not worth mentioning in the chaotic universe. They are. Yi Xian looked up and saw dozens of undyings kneeling on the ground. Yi Xian didn't recognize most of them. Other than Green Ghost Taoist and the other 4 undyings, the others were all unfamiliar. Clearly, they were new members of the Celestial Court in the past 3 million years. Sect Master is wise. These fellows have all joined the Celestial Court of the Northern Region after admiring your supreme prestige. Now, they are holding important positions in the Celestial Court of the Northern Region and have made great contributions to the Celestial Court, Green Ghost Taoist hurriedly explained. Greetings, sect leader. The 10 undyings hurriedly bowed towards Yi Xian again. None of them dared to look straight into Yi Xian's eyes, their faces filled with fear and trepidation. Among these undyings, there were demons, rogue cultivators, and elders of the 3 major sects of the northern region. They had all joined the Celestial Court of the Northern Region for various reasons. Although they were undyings, they knew Yi Xian's prestige very well. At this moment, they were extremely humble. After all, they had heard of Yi Xian's means and knew that the 3 major sects of the Northern Region were destroyed by Yi Xian. Etion, go to hell. Suddenly there was a sudden change. A venomous voice suddenly sounded out from the crowd. A figure arrived in front of Yi Xian with a loud bang, and the Immortal Great Technique directly smashed towards the center of Yi Xian's brows. From the looks of it, it was obvious that he wanted Yi Xian's life. Chi. The sky-splitting Great Technique was extremely vicious. This attack was so sudden that even Yi Xian was not prepared for it. The others' expressions changed immediately. They didn't know who was so bold to attack Yi Xian at this moment. Dang! A jade-like finger that looked like it was made of glazed diamond gently dissipated the sky-splitting Great Technique. In the next moment, there was a loud explosion followed by an ear-piercing scream. Bang! Mountains and rivers exploded, the void trembled, and a figure crashed onto the ground. That person coughed out a mouthful of blood, and his aura instantly became weak and dispirited. Qilian, are you crazy? How dare you attack the sect leader? In the next moment, when the crowd saw the person who attacked Yi Xian, they were shocked. Only Yi Xian slowly retracted his finger and looked at the Qilian, which with a frown. Why do you want to kill me? Yi Xian slowly walked in front of the Scarlet Witch. His eyes were indifferent, and the way he looked at the Scarlet Witch was extremely calm. The goddess sect leader treated me like her own daughter. You killed her and annihilated the goddess sect. How dare you ask me why I want to kill you? The goddess sect leader looked at Yi Xian with hatred as blood dripped from the corner of her mouth. I see. Yi Xian nodded in understanding. When the celestial maiden sect leader took Qilian away, she resolved the misunderstanding between Qilian and the celestial maiden sect. Him killing the celestial maiden sect leader naturally caused the Scarlet Witch to be furious. The Great Tao is a solitary path. The strong will always step on the corpses of the weak. Killing her is inevitable. Even if I didn't kill her back then, she might not have let me go. You want to avenge her, but it's a pity that you don't have the ability to do so. Yi Xian looked at the Qilian Witch indifferently and continued. However, I did treat you with kindness back then. Now that you want to kill me, You are already a dead man in my eyes. Yi Tian, you are nothing but a despicable person. You have been using me all along. The so-called grace is just a means to you. Today, if you want to kill me, go ahead. Even if I die, I will curse you for all eternity. The Scarlet Witch cursed venomously. Looking at the Scarlet Witch's unyielding expression, Yi Xian lightly nodded and said, I've always admired people who aren't afraid of death. However, I also hate this kind of person because this kind of person is ignorant and ignorant. A person only has one life in death, and once they die, there will be nothing left. A person who doesn't even know how to cherish their own life in death doesn't have the qualifications to live in this world. Sect leader, please calm down. Qi Lian was just being impulsive. Please give her another chance. Green Ghost Taoist's expression changed. He quickly kowtowed to Yi Xian. The other Undyings also pleaded for mercy for the Qi Lian witch. After all, they had worked together for so many years and had a deep friendship with the Qi Lian witch. Chance. Yi Xian smiled faintly. He looked at Green Ghost and the other Undyings indifferently. A cruel smile appeared on his face. I am a person who doesn't like killing. However, I have a taboo that I hope all of you can remember. Those who want to kill me will only become a dead man. There has never been an exception. I hope all of you can remember what I said today. Ah. In the next moment, an extremely mournful scream sounded out. Yi Xian suddenly lifted the Scarlet Witch into the air, and an extremely terrifying black mist submerged the Scarlet Witch. This ear-piercing scream came from the Scarlet Witch's mouth. Kill me! Kill me! Ah, Calamity Transcender technique and Devouring Heaven demonic technique were extremely terrifying. The terrifying black mist devoured the Qi Lian witch's flesh and soul. The pain it brought her was not something an outsider could imagine. The spectators were speechless. Large amounts of cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. Chapter 1499. The cries of the Scarlet Witch became softer and softer, until there was no more sound. When the black mist gradually dispersed from Yi Xian's hand, a horrifying scene appeared before everyone's eyes. The Scarlet Witch had disappeared, leaving behind a white skeleton. A river of blood gushed out from the skeleton, and was directly swallowed by Yi Xian. After Yi Xian finished doing all of this, he lightly waved his sleeve, and the white skeleton in his hand turned into dust that filled the sky and dissipated. The sound of people inhaling cold breaths could be heard continuously. A silent atmosphere filled the air. Dozens of sempiternal realm experts were trembling in fear. At this moment, they all looked away and lowered their heads. However, everyone's face was pale because the scene was too horrifying. Yi Xian had become the synonym of terror in their hearts. It was no wonder that these people were afraid of Yi Xian. The Scarlet Witch's death was too miserable. Her bones were ground into dust, and she would no longer exist in this world. These dozens of people who could step into the sempiternal realm were naturally people who had experienced great storms. They were people who had walked through seas of blood and mountains of corpses. Their temperament was not something that ordinary people could compare with. What really frightened them was not Yi Xian's method of killing, but the shock that Yi Xian brought to them. The Scarlet Witch had opened the second gate of heaven. However, she could not even fight back against Yi Xian. This was simply unbelievable to them, and they were extremely shocked. This was because they could clearly sense that Yi Xian had just stepped into the sempiternal realm. However, his combat strength was simply too heaven-defying. It was not a cultivation level that a person who had just stepped into the sempiternal realm should have. Moreover, when Yi Xian devoured the blood qi, it was very similar to the legendary demonic heaven-devouring technique. Everyone guessed that Yi Xian might be from the demonic heaven-devouring palace. It's really boring. After devouring the Scarlet Witch's cultivation, Yi Xian secretly curled his lips. This was because his cultivation level did not increase by much. Obviously, after stepping into the sempiternal realm, devouring this kind of low-level sempiternal realm cultivator was just a drop in the bucket for his cultivation level. However, Yi Xian still believed that no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Wasting it was an extremely shameful act. Therefore, devouring the Scarlet Witch's cultivation level was considered as making use of trash. It was better than cultivating by himself. Sect Master is mighty. The sempiternal realm experts trembled and kowtowed. Fear towards Yi Xian was deeply rooted in their hearts. This Yi Xian was simply a demon king. Sempiternal realm cultivator. How could they not be afraid? Everyone, there's no need to be so polite. As long as you are obedient, I will not mistreat you. Yi Xian said indifferently. He then waved his hand and sent the sempiternal realm experts away. Yi Xian did not have any feelings towards the northern region celestial court. He was just using it as a tool. Now that he had stepped into the sempiternal realm, he was hesitating. Therefore, he did not have the mood to care about these sempiternal realm experts. We will take our leave. The sempiternal realm experts hurriedly took their leave. The snow bamboo peak became quiet again. Only Yi Xian, Fatso Huang, and Gu Beichen remained. Mr. Congratulations on stepping into the sempiternal realm. When will we return to the Grand Central region? Gu Beichen said with joy. There's no hurry. Yi Xian looked at Gu Beichen and Fatso Huang with deep eyes and said, Tell me what happened during the 3 million years I was in seclusion. Did old demon Bei Meng and sect master Bei Ming make any moves? Mister, please listen to me slowly. Fatso Huang did not dare to delay. He quickly recounted the events that happened during the 3 million years. As it turned out, ever since Yi Xian went into seclusion, the northern region celestial court expanded rapidly. It even devoured the 3 major sects of the northern region. More than 10 sempiternal realm experts came to the northern region because of its reputation. The annihilation of the 3 major sects of the northern region established the northern region celestial court's supreme status. All the major sects and orthodoxies submitted to it. Those who did not submit were all slaughtered. However, old demon Bei Meng appeared from time to kill the members of the celestial court. As many as 3 sempiternal realm experts died in his hands. The northern region celestial court stopped expanding. They could only bide their time for now. On the other hand, sect master Bei Ming gathered the remnants of the northern nether sect and secretly roped in some other orthodoxies. He was secretly stirring up trouble and began to oppose the northern region celestial court. Fortunately, old demon Bei Meng and sect master Bei Ming did not dare to attack the northern region celestial court. After all, they had suffered at the hands of Yi Xian previously. They were extremely wary of Yi Xian. Mister, I found out an extremely important piece of news. Old demon Bei Meng went into seclusion 1,000,000 years ago. He said that he was going to open the 4th heaven gate. Sect master Bei Ming is the same. If these 2 people open the 4th heaven gate, I'm afraid they will definitely attack us. Fatso Huang said in a deep voice. Oh! Yi Xian's eyes lit up as an expression of interest finally appeared on his face. Mister, aren't you worried? Looking at Yi Xian's calm attitude, Gu Beichen was stunned. The immortal realm was divided into 4 stages. Each stage was as different as heaven and earth. Opening the first 3 heaven gates was the first stage of the immortal realm. Opening the 4th, 6th, and 6th heaven gates were the second stage. Opening the 7th, 8th, and 9th heaven gates were the third stage. When the 9 heaven gates were combined, the immortal realm would be at the perfected immortal realm, which was also the 4th stage. After that, one would step into the half-step omnipotent realm and face the 3rd calamity of eternity. Therefore, the immortal 9 heaven gates was also known as the 4 stages of immortality. There was a huge divide between these 4 stages. Each stage was as different as heaven and earth. For example, an immortal realm expert who had opened the 4th heaven gate could easily kill 10 immortal realm experts who had opened the 3rd heaven gate. This was the difference between the 2 stages. It was also the terrifying part of the immortal realm's 2nd stage. Therefore, Gu Beichen was very worried. If old demon Bei Meng and sect master Bei Ming really opened the 4th heaven gate, it would be an extremely serious threat to Yi Xian. You have to fatten a pig before killing it. If it's too skinny, it won't be interesting to eat it, Yi Xian said in a low voice. Yi Xian lightly smiled at Gu Beichen's worry. Yi Xian didn't place old devil Bei Meng and the Dark North hierarch in his eyes at all. He also wanted to see what would happen if the 2 of them opened the 4th gate of heaven. After all, Yi Xian had already stepped into the immortal realm. He also wanted to test his combat strength. Moreover, devouring a first-stage Immortal Realm expert wouldn't have much of an effect on his cultivation. Perhaps an Immortal Realm expert, who had opened the fourth heaven gate, would give him a surprise? An evil smile curled up from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. Before he returned to the Great Central Region, he wanted to use these two people as whetstones to see how far his cultivation had reached. Moreover, if he could devour two Immortal Realm experts who had opened the fourth heaven gate, it would be extremely beneficial to his cultivation. Yi Xian wanted to rely on these two people to open the first heaven gate. After all, he had just stepped into the Immortal Realm and hadn't even opened the first heaven gate. Chapter 1500. Boom, boom, boom. Dark North's cold light was earth-shattering. His immortal power pierced through the universe. Under a 10,000 zhang tall cliff, Dark North was absorbing the light of the sun and the moon. His entire body was shrouded in a terrifying cold mist, from which an extremely terrifying aura was spreading out. Rumble. 3 divine gates opened in the air in a row. The 3 divine gates buzzed and swayed, while Dark North's raging roars could be heard from the bottom of the cliff. An extremely strong power had been releasing from the 3 divine gates. Open! The world shook and the mountains trembled. Terrifying cracks appeared in the void one after another. The mountains under his feet were also cracking. Along with a series of loud noises, the mountains began collapsing one after another. It was a terrifying scene. Buzz! Finally, the 3 gates shook violently, and an illusory gate emerged. This gate was spinning crazily, absorbing the spiritual energy in the world at a terrifying rate. Many primal chaos laws were also fused into it. Eventually the 4th gate appeared. Success! Ha ha ha! When the 4th divine gate was opened, the cold mist released from Dark North's body disappeared immediately. He rose into the sky, and the 4 divine gates rotated rumblingly behind him. Meanwhile, an unimaginably strong power vibration erupted from his body. Yi Tian, you destroyed my Dark North sect and stole my heaven-shattering cauldron. If I don't grind your bones to dust, how can I vent the hatred in my heart? Dark North roared crazily. His enraged voice resounded through the entire world. The terrifying sound waves shattered mountains and rivers, and even the world was shaking. After opening the 4th divine gate, Hierarch Dark North had changed qualitatively. Even though he had only opened one more divine gate, compared to before, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. He had finally stepped into the 2nd stage of the Immortal Realm. After millions of years of painstaking cultivation, he had achieved his current level of cultivation. All of this was so that one day, he could chop Yi Xian into 8 pieces and grind his bones to dust, then personally take back the heaven-shattering cauldron. Yi, not only do I want you to die without a burial ground, but I also want to destroy your northern region's celestial court. I want you to know the consequences of going against me. I want you to die a horrible death. The anger that he had been suppressing for millions of years exploded today. Dark North was in a state of madness. The power he released from his body even disturbed the natural laws of this area. As a man who had opened the 4th gate, he was indeed terrifyingly powerful. The 9 great heavenly gates were divided into 4 stages. The 1st heavenly gate to the 3rd heavenly gate were merely the first stage. Only by truly opening the 4th heavenly gate would one be considered to have a firm foothold in the immortal realm. Opening the 4th gate of heaven was not only an increase in one's cultivation level. The most important reason was the so-called immortal divine ability. This was also the real reason why the 2nd stage could completely dominate the 1st stage. What was an immortal ability? As its name implied, the immortal divine ability was a great divine ability unique to the immortal realm, and one could only comprehend it after opening the 4th heaven gate. The human body seemed small, but when it merged with the chaotic universe, it could also be seen as a miniature universe. Opening the 4th heavenly gate was a process of excavating one's own universe, and one would be able to excavate one's own unique great divine ability. Of course, everyone's great divine ability was different. Some great divine abilities were extremely heaven-defying, and could even kill those who were one level higher than them. Some people's divine abilities were extremely weak, and thus they would also become weak. It all depended on one's potential. The higher one's potential was, the more powerful the divine ability would be. At this moment, Dark North had just opened the fourth heavenly gate, when a kind of enlightenment flooded his mind. The fourth heavenly gate was rumbling behind him, and streams of indescribable chi were connected to him, as if it was condensing his own great divine ability. Dark North freezing sky. All of a sudden, Dark North's eyes shone brightly, and an excited voice burst out from his mouth. The fourth heavenly gate rumbled as it revolved, and the entire area instantly changed. Boom, boom, boom. Heaven and earth cracked, and the mountains and rivers shook. Glaciers rose from the ground, and the cold wind howled. Large snowflakes fell from the sky for billions of miles. The originally clear sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds, and it instantly turned into an extremely cold world. Great! Looking at the boundless world of ice and snow before him, Dark North roared excitedly. This was the great divine ability he had just comprehended, and he called it Dark North Freezing Sky. This great divine ability was extremely terrifying. It could turn millions of miles of heaven and earth into a world of ice and snow. No spiritual chi existed in it, and only endless cold energy filled it. It could only become his battlefield. Moreover, the most terrifying thing about this great divine ability was that any enemy of Dark North would be attacked by the cold energy of heaven and earth. The terrifying glaciers that rose from the ground were the best weapons to kill the enemy. With this great divine ability in hand, surnamed Yi, you will definitely die. Dark North laughed wildly. Heh. Suddenly, just as Dark North was in a state of excitement, a disdainful sneer was heard. This also made Dark North's expression change, and his 5 fingers suddenly slapped in a direction. Where did this scoundrel come from? How dare you spy on me? Get out here. Boom. The void exploded as cold light crisscrossed. This attack of the Dark North sect leader was truly terrifying, directly shattering the void. A black silhouette appeared. However, when facing this attack of the Dark North sect leader, that black silhouette easily dodged. Clearly, this person wasn't an ordinary character. It's you. When he saw who was spying on him, Dark North's expression changed. This was because the person before him was old demon Bei Mang. Moreover, what made Dark North's heart sink the most was that there were also 4 heaven gates rotating behind old demon Bei Mang. Clearly, old demon Bei Mang had opened the 4th heaven gate long ago, and had been spying on him secretly. Thinking of this, Dark North immediately broke out in cold sweat. If old demon Bei Mang had launched a sneak attack on him when he was breaking through, he would definitely have suffered a great calamity. Taoist Dark North, congratulations on opening the 4th heaven gate. Old demon Bei Mang was dressed in black. He happily cupped his hands towards Dark North with a kind smile on his face, as if he did not have any hostility towards Dark North. However, Dark North was no fool. He did not think that old demon Bei Mang had come to talk about the past with him. The two of them were enemies, not friends. Back then, he had used the heaven-breaking cauldron to heavily injure old demon Bei Mang and launch a sneak attack on him. This matter was still clearly remembered in their minds. Old demon Bei Mang, what do you mean by this? Dark North narrowed his eyes, and a trace of hostility flashed through his eyes. Looking at Dark North's unfriendly face, old demon Bei Mang smiled and said, Taoist, what are you doing? Although we had some misunderstandings before, we have a common enemy. If I really wanted to harm you, wouldn't it be perfect for me to attack you when you were breaking through? Why would I protect you and let you open the 4th heaven gate? As old demon Bei Mang's words fell, Dark North was slightly stunned. Then, the hostility on his face gradually disappeared. Chapter 1501. Just as old demon Bei Mang had said, if old demon Bei Mang had wanted to attack him, he definitely would not have been able to block it. There was an extremely high chance that he would have died in old demon Bei Mang's hands. Dark North Hierarch was not stupid. He had already vaguely guessed old demon Bei Mang's thoughts. Bei Mang, you want to join forces with me to kill Yi? Dark North Hierarch did not beat around the bush, and directly stated his thoughts. Yes. Old demon Bei Mang did not hide anything and directly admitted it. Furthermore, the smile on his face had disappeared. His entire person had become extremely solemn. Why should I join forces with you? I have already opened the fourth gate of heaven, and I have also grasped the great divine ability of dark north freezing sky. Killing this bastard is as easy as pie for me. Dark North Hierarch sneered. Hee hee. Old Demon Beimeng laughed. However, his laughter was filled with disdain, so much so that Dark North Hierarch's face turned gloomy. Fellow Taoist Dark North, do you really not know how powerful he is, or are you pretending? Do you think that you can kill him just because you have opened the fourth gate of heaven? Old Demon Beimeng mocked. Dark North Hierarch said with a gloomy face. What a joke. No matter how powerful he is, there is a limit. If he hadn't set up a trap back then, with his battle prowess, he would at most be able to fight me to a draw. Now that I have opened the fourth gate of heaven, my battle prowess is at least 10 times stronger than before. Furthermore, I have a great divine ability in hand. Killing him is as easy as pie. Do you believe your own words? Old Demon Beimeng said indifferently. He did not want to argue with Dark North Hierarch at all. He only looked at Dark North Hierarch with a mocking smile. You? Dark North Hierarch's face turned slightly red. In truth, he had only said those words to encourage himself. In his heart, he did not dare to be certain that he could kill Yi Xian. After all, Yi Xian was simply too mysterious. Furthermore, his methods were extremely sinister and cunning. Fellow Taoist Dark North, there is no need for us to feign civility. I opened the fourth gate of heaven a million years before you. If I could kill this person, I would have done it long ago. Why would I wait until now? Old Demon Beimeng's face turned slightly solemn as he continued. Whether you admit it or not, in terms of cultivation and battle prowess, I am to surpass you. But even I am not confident. Do you think you can succeed? Humph. Hierarch Dark North laughed coldly. You old Demon Beimeng might be afraid of him, but I'm not. I refuse to believe that a mere Dao-seeking third-level cultivator like him, even if he's already stepped into the Undying Realm, would be a match for me? Seeing the confident look on Hierarch Beimeng's face, old Demon Beimeng said with a gloomy voice. Do you know who he is? Hierarch Dark North paused, because he actually heard a slight trembling voice from old Demon Beimeng's mouth. Although the trembling voice was extremely faint, it still made his heart tremble violently, and an extremely bad feeling rose in his heart. Who is he? Dark North Hierarch probed. He had long known that Yi Xian's identity was mysterious, and that he had mastered many supreme martial arts. How could such a person be a nobody? However, he had been so focused on his cultivation that he didn't have the time to investigate Yi Xian's identity. Now, however, when he saw the serious look on old Demon Beimeng's face, he knew that Yi Xian's identity was definitely not simple. Who? Old Demon Beimeng slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, as if trying to calm himself down. However, what he said next was simply earth-shattering, and it made Dark North Hierarch feel as if he had been struck by lightning. He was completely stunned on the spot. He's not called Yi Xian. That's just his alias. His real name is Yi Xian. He's the one who killed the Lord of the Extreme Devil. Although this name only appeared in the Grand Central region for a short period of time, and very few people know about his past, I just happened to investigate it. Old Demon Beimeng said solemnly. What did you say? In the next moment, Hierarch Dark North roared with a trembling voice. He simply couldn't believe his ears. He had naturally heard of Yi Xian's name before, and he had also heard of his deeds. However, back then, he had only treated it as a rumor. It was simply a fantasy for a minor cultivator to kill one of the most powerful existences in history. Therefore, Hierarch Dark North Hierarch did not believe in such a thing. He had only treated Yi Xian's deeds as a joke. However, after hearing old Demon Beimeng's words, Hierarch Dark North Hierarch's mind was thrown into chaos. The deeds of Yi Xian in the Grand Central region kept surging into his mind, causing Hierarch Dark North Hierarch's face to darken. So that's how it is. No wonder his combat power is so strange. He could actually kill an immortal at the Dao Querying third level. So he is Yi Xian. Hierarch Dark North Hierarch murmured in a trembling voice. He suddenly felt enlightened. However, he suddenly frowned as if he had remembered something. He then looked at old Demon Beimeng in shock. Didn't this Yi Xian die a long time ago? How did he survive the hands of a supreme expert? And how did he appear in the north region? Old Demon Biming slowly shook his head and smiled bitterly. I don't know how he survived, nor do I know how he appeared in the north region. However, he is indeed Yi Xian. This is because I personally went to the Grand Central region to investigate his whereabouts. I even found a portrait of him. It is exactly the same as this Yi Tian. There is no mistake about it. Moreover, it is rumored that this Yi Xian is proficient in the secret arts of the various supreme orthodoxies. Therefore, I am certain that Yi Xian and Yi Tian are the same person. There is no mistake about it. Old Demon Biming said with certainty. Then why didn't you tell those supreme orthodoxies that Yi Xian is still alive? That way, you and I can avoid the trouble of killing him. Hierarch Dark North Hierarch's words came to an abrupt halt. He could no longer continue, because he had already realized why Old Demon Biming did not tell the supreme orthodoxies that Yi Xian was still alive. The Heavenly Shattering Cauldron. Yes, the Heavenly Shattering Cauldron. If Old Devil Bei Mang were to inform the various supreme orthodoxies of this news, even though it would be able to attract the supreme orthodoxies to kill Yi Xian, the Heaven-Shattering Cauldron would also be obtained by them. This wouldn't benefit Old Devil Bei Mang at all. Killing Yi Xian was only one of the reasons. The more important reason was the Heavenly Shattering Cauldron in Yi Xian's possession. Hierarch Dark North Hierarch instantly understood the crux of the matter. This caused him to feel extremely bitter in his heart. It was no wonder Old Demon Biming came looking for him. It was because only by joining forces would they have the confidence to kill Yi Xian. Taoist Dark North Hierarch, I don't want to say too much. You should already know my objective. This Yi Xian is far too mysterious. There was even a rumor that he had killed the Lord of the Extreme Devil. Although this is impossible, there is no smoke without fire. This also proves that this person is indeed very powerful. Even if I opened the fourth gate of heaven, I still wouldn't dare to kill him. Right now, only by joining forces can we kill this person and take back the Heavenly Shattering Cauldron. Right now, only you and I know about the Heavenly Shattering Cauldron. You don't want those supreme orthodoxies to take it away, right? Old Demon Biming said solemnly. Hierarch Dark North Hierarch did not hesitate at all. This was because he had already seen through everything. Just as Old Demon Biming had said, joining forces was the best choice. Alright, I promise you. After we kill Yi Xian, you and I will study the Heavenly Shattering Cauldron together. However, I have to warn you in advance. If we continue to be suspicious of each other, and allow Yi Xian to take advantage of this, neither of us will have a good ending. Hierarch Dark North Hierarch said. Of course. Old Demon Biming nodded solemnly. You and I will make our preparations. Then, we will kill our way to the Northern Region Celestial Court. After saying that, Hierarch Dark North Hierarch sat down cross-legged and stabilized his cultivation base and realm. Old Demon Biming also began to adjust his state of mind. This battle was too important for both of them. Chapter 1502. On the other side, Snow Bamboo Peak. Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged in the void, cultivating the sky-burying technique at a moderate pace. A faint image of the sky gate appeared behind him. Clearly he was condensing his first sky gate. However, if he wanted to condense a heaven gate, he would need an enormous amount of resources to fill it. According to Yi Xian's cultivation speed, it would take him at least 10 million years to condense the first heaven gate. He couldn't afford to wait. Why does the first sky gate make my divine soul throb? Yi Xian stopped cultivating with a puzzled look in his eyes. During the process of condensing his first sky gate, his divine soul had been throbbing slightly. This throbbing made Yi Xian extremely puzzled. It was as if something extraordinary was contained in the first sky gate. Yi Xian suppressed this strange emotion. He indifferently looked down at the sea of clouds in front of him. His heart gradually became calm, and his entire person seemed abnormally calm. After stepping into the immortal realm, Yi Xian's entire body became calm. This kind of calm state of mind was what he needed, because only by doing this would he be able to steadily increase his cultivation. This was also a type of mental training. However, Yi Xian had a faint premonition that when he opened the first heaven gate, there would definitely be some unexpected changes. This kind of change should be developing in a good direction, and this feeling was extremely strong. Time was like water fleeting. In the blink of an eye, 30,000 years had passed. Yi Xian cultivated on Snow Bamboo Peak every day, and rarely appeared in the outside world. Apart from Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen who could occasionally see him, even Green Ghost Taoist, and the other Immortal Realm experts couldn't see Yi Xian. These 30,000 years passed very quickly. Yi Xian cultivated quietly every day. However, the entire North region was in chaos. This was because the North region's celestial court had begun to expand again. Everywhere they passed, there would be a reign of terror. Plunder, endless plunder. Massacre, monstrous massacre. Under the lead of over 10 sempiternal realm experts, the celestial court of the northern region seemed to have transformed into a terrifying killing machine. Everywhere they passed, sects and clans would be annihilated, and there was no one in the entire northern region who could stand up to them. Such inhumane massacres and unscrupulous annihilation of sects and clans finally aroused the resistance of a large number of orthodoxies. These orthodoxies banded together and began to resist the celestial court of the northern region. War after war broke out in the northern region. It was not that these sects and orthodoxies wanted to become enemies with the celestial court of the northern region. They were already willing to submit, but the celestial court of the northern region would not let them go. They had no choice but to resist, knowing that they would die. In fact, the instigator of all this was Yi Xian. It was because Yi Xian had issued an order, and this order was the reason why the celestial court of the northern region had started a massacre in the northern region. As mentioned before, the northern region was a land of bitter cold. It snowed all year round, and resources were extremely scarce. When the three major sects of the northern region were still around, they controlled almost all of the cultivation resources in the northern region. Some of the orthodoxies also relied on the three major sects to survive. However, after the war between the three sects, a large amount of cultivation resources were depleted. Even when Yi Xian broke through to the Immortal Realm, the three sects' resources were depleted. The celestial court of the northern region had nothing left. If Yi Xian wanted to cultivate, he naturally needed endless resources to accumulate his cultivation base. Therefore, he ordered the celestial court of the northern region to annihilate sects and clans. He even frantically plundered the orthodoxies of all sizes and sent all of the cultivation resources to the Snow Bamboo Peak for his cultivation. Yi Xian's actions were completely deranged. He was also squeezing the entire northern region dry. He wanted to squeeze every last bit of useful value out of them. Of course, Yi Xian was not a kind person. He didn't have a compassionate heart either. He only wanted to open the first gate of heaven as soon as possible, so that his cultivation could reach the next level. This was his most simple goal. As for the life and death of the northern region, it had nothing to do with him, because Yi Xian had always believed in one phrase: every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindrance. The weak were like dogs while the strong were like the heavens. The so-called compassionate heart was only a stumbling block for him. These 30,000 years were filled with bloodshed. The northern region was extremely vast, but cultivation resources were truly scarce. However, under Yi Xian's oppressive methods, the celestial court of the northern region plundered and slaughtered like a mad dog. Large amounts of cultivation resources were continuously sent back to the Snow Bamboo Peak. Therefore, during these 30,000 years, Yi Xian had been cultivating every day. A large amount of heavenly and earthly treasures had been exhausted by him, and his cultivation had also increased day by day. This was indeed a joyous occasion for Yi Xian. As for how many creatures died in the outside world, and how many orthodoxies and sects were destroyed, Yi Xian didn't care about these. He only cared about how many heaven and earth treasures the celestial court of the northern region had plundered. This was what he truly cared about. Grievances were everywhere, and people were plunged into misery and suffering. Yi Xian's actions were like killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. However, Yi Xian didn't care, because he didn't want to stay in the northern region. He only wanted to open the first gate of heaven as soon as possible, because his battlefield was in the central region. Of course, The celestial court of the northern region had been waging wars for years and had suffered great losses. More than 10 immortals had even come together to visit Yi Xian, hoping to stop the slaughter. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was truly impulsive and a tyrant. He directly killed one of the immortals, frightening them so much that they hurriedly begged for forgiveness. After that, he led the celestial court of the northern region to plunder resources from the outside world. Yi Xian's actions were too extreme and unbefitting of a leader. This would also cause the celestial court of the northern region to lose their morale. However, Yi Xian didn't care because he clearly understood that only personal strength was eternal. The so-called influence was ultimately nothing more than an illusion. Ever since he'd seen the most powerful and taboo figures of all times, Yi Xian had understood a principle. In this chaotic universe, as long as you reached the peak, you would have everything. If you were only intoxicated by a certain power and complacent, then sooner or later, you would be eliminated by the experts and become the bones under the feet of others. On the snow bamboo peak, Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen looked solemn. Yi Xian was still immersed in cultivation. The Elysium shadow behind him became more and more solid. Clearly, the 30,000 years of cultivation had deepened Yi Xian's cultivation. What's the matter? Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes. Sir, there are many complaints in the outside world. Even the celestial court of the northern region is gossiping. If this continues, I'm afraid. Fatso Huang hesitated. You're afraid that they'll betray me? Yi Xian smiled faintly. Sir, water can carry a boat, but it can also sink it. Right now, all the living beings in the northern region see you as the Devil King. Countless orthodoxies and sects have joined forces to suppress you. Even the entire celestial court of the northern region is dissatisfied with you. I'm afraid. Gu Beichen was slightly worried. The wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people, and the betrayal of the people? Yi Xian smiled. However, his smile was very strange. He looked down at the sea of clouds in front of him and said in a low voice, if a person is so powerful that no one can stop him, then he's the one who makes the rules. Only the weak will care about the thoughts of some ants. Moreover, I'm also very curious to see who dares to rebel against me. Most importantly, I think that old demon Baiming and hierarch Baiming won't be able to sit still. Fatso Huang was slightly startled. He asked tentatively, Sir, you mean? Our battlefield is in the central region. We're only staying in the northern region for a short while. Although the celestial court of the northern region was created by me, its members are originally from the 6 sections. They're not loyal to me at all. I'm just making use of trash. Only after a cruel selection can I truly make the celestial court of the northern region work for me. Yi Xian said calmly. Sir, we understand. Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen nodded slowly. Chapter 1503. Yet another 10,000 years had passed, and Yi Xian had turned into a tyrant. Every single living being in the north region paled at the mention of his name. It was also at this moment that a shocking piece of news spread across the entire north region. Old Demon Bei Mang and the Dark North Sect Master had appeared. Both of them had called for all the sects in the north region to join forces against the celestial court. Instantly, countless sects and orthodoxies responded. In just a few years, they had formed a massive alliance. At the same time, a challenge letter was sent to Snow Bamboo Peak. This challenge letter was jointly written by Old Demon Bei Mang and the Dark North Sect Master. The content was simple. Within it, they condemned Yi Xian for his atrocious actions. They even listed out some of the crimes that Yi Xian had committed in a dignified manner. They wanted to fight against Yi Xian and the celestial court of the north region. Yi Xian read through the challenge letter in his hands calmly before turning it into ashes. From the beginning till the end, there was no change in his expression at all. The dozens of immortal state beings looked at one another, with a confused look in their eyes. Sect Master, I've heard that Old Demon Bei Mang and the Dark North Sect Master have each opened their 4th heaven's gate. Now that they have gathered so many sects and orthodoxies to fight against the celestial court, I'm afraid that this battle will. Taoist god Might was a immortal state being who had opened his 1st heaven's gate. He was once an overlord of an area, and an elder of the Dark North sect. Ever since the Dark North sect was destroyed, he had led the remaining disciples of the Dark North sect to join the Celestial Court of the North region. What are you afraid of? Yi Xian looked at Taoist Godmight calmly. I'm afraid that the Celestial Court of the North region will not be a match for you. How about we make peace for now? Bam! Ugh! Suddenly, a loud sound boomed out as Taoist Godmight was sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he slammed onto the ground. Thud! 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 Yi Xian walked forward slowly. With every step he took, the entire snow bamboo peak shook. When he arrived before this person, his eyes were calm and deep. Remember this. As a member of the Celestial Court of the North region, there's only death in battle and no peace. I hope you can remember this. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Yi Xian said softly. Yes, I know my mistake. Please forgive me. Taoist Godmight's name of the Celestial Court of Death Sects Yi Xian, that was the Celestial Court. No matter what, he was still an Immortal Realm expert. No matter where he went, he was a great figure that was revered by all living beings. However, in front of Yi Xian, he wasn't even comparable to a dog. However, he did not dare to show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction, because he knew that the man in front of him was extremely vicious. If he dared to show any signs of dissatisfaction, he would definitely die tragically in the next moment. The dozen or so Immortal Realm experts were completely silent. However, each of them had a different expression on their faces. No one knew what they were thinking. Disperse. Prepare for the battle a year from now. Yi Xian waved his hand, and the dozen or so Immortal Realm experts hurriedly left to prepare for the great battle a year from now. However, it wasn't a peaceful night. A strange atmosphere filled the entire Celestial Court of North region. Some figures left the Celestial Court of North region under the cover of the night. They gathered in different parts of the Celestial Court of North region, as though they were discussing something in secret. On Snow Bamboo Peak, Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void. Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen stood on his left and right. Yi Xian's eyes were moving slightly as he watched the scene unfold. A faint smile appeared on his face. Yi Xian was about to return to the Grand Central region. The Northern Celestial Court of North region was made up of 6 sections. These of course. If Yi Xian were to bring them back to the Grand Central region, it was only a matter of time before something went wrong. Therefore, Yi Xian had to eliminate this hidden danger. This was also the reason why he had been so brutal for the past tens of thousands of years. 1 year later. Rumble. War drums rumbled. Dark clouds covered the sky. Dark figures blotted out the sun. Old Demon Beimang and Sect Master Darknorth strolled through the sky. Countless cultivators gathered behind them. The dark mass of cultivators released a terrifying aura. Yi Daoyu, it's been a long time since we last met. Have you missed us? Old Demon Beimang's voice resounded from all directions, causing the sky to tremble. Dong! 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 The war drums of the Northern Celestial Court were beating. A large number of people from the Celestial Court rose into the sky. Yi Xian strolled through the sky. He looked at Old Demon Beimang and Sect Master Darknorth in front of him. His face was calm without any ripples. Yi Xian's calmness caused Old Demon Beimang and Sect Master Darknorth's hearts to sink. Sect Master Darknorth's eyes flickered as he said, Yi Xian, you destroyed 3 great sects of my northern region. You even killed innocent people of the northern region. Today will be the day you die. You talk too much nonsense. Kill them. Yi Xian said indifferently. He didn't say a single word of nonsense. However, something strange happened. Only a small number of people from the Northern Celestial Court obeyed Yi Xian's order to equip themselves for the battle. However, the majority of them didn't move at all. An extremely stifling atmosphere grew at this moment. Yi Daoyu, you've been deserted by everyone. You've angered everyone in the northern region. Who else is willing to help you now? Old Demon Beimang mocked. Yi Tian, you don't treat us like humans and order us around like dogs. Don't blame us for betraying you. Taoist Godmight sneered. He led the remaining members of Tong Ming cult to Old Demon Beimang's side and looked at Yi Xian with resentment. At the same time, A large number of people from the Northern Celestial Court rebelled under the leadership of 6 or 7 Immortal Realm experts. They joined Old Demon Beimang and Sect Master Darknorth's camp. Although they didn't say anything, it was obvious that they had betrayed Yi Xian. At this moment, less than 30% of the people from the Northern Celestial Court remained. Only the 4 Immortal Realm experts who had followed Yi Xian the longest did not rebel. There were also 2 Immortal Realm experts who had joined the Northern Celestial Court. However, at this moment, their expressions were filled with hesitation. Yi Daoyu, do you see that? You've been deserted by everyone, Sect Master Darknorth sneered. They're just a bunch of trash. There's no point in keeping them. Yi Xian said calmly. Then, he looked at the few remaining members of the Northern Celestial Court and said, It's up to you to decide whether you want to stay or leave. This subordinate dares not. Daoist Qing Gui hurriedly bowed. Sect Master Jiu Chu and the others also hurriedly bowed, because they were the first people to follow Yi Xian. Although they were somewhat dissatisfied with Yi Xian's brutal actions over the years, they had a deep understanding of Yi Xian's terrifying methods. They didn't dare to betray him. I admire smart people. That's why I want you to live well. Yi Xian smiled strangely. What happened next immediately left Daoist Qing Gui and the others speechless. They were extremely glad that they had made the right choice. Rumble. The sky darkened as the blood-red light filled the sky. At some point in time, terrifying blood-red formation runes rose up in all directions. These runes interweaved to form a blood formation that covered the sky, enveloping Old Demon Beimang and the others. It swallowed the sky and devoured the earth. Dead souls wailed and howled. The cries of ghosts and deities rang out in the sky, accompanied by the blood-red light and chilly wind. The rising curtain of blood released a terrifying aura that could obliterate souls. All-directional blood spirit swallowing sky formation. This formation can obliterate the physical body and grind the soul. It can transform the flesh and soul of living beings into the purest energy. This is also a small gift I've prepared for you, Yi Xian said indifferently. Chapter 1504. 10-direction blood spirit swallowing the heavens formation. This was a formation created by Yi Xian himself. It incorporated the mysteries of the Calamity Transcender technique and the heaven-swallowing demonic art, as well as the star origin art. This formation could shock the heavens and earth, and it had the terrifying power to devour the flesh and soul of living beings. Yi Xian's idea was very simple. First, he wanted to clean up the Northern Region Celestial Court. Second, he wanted to devour cultivation bases to increase his own strength. This 10-direction blood spirit swallowing the heavens formation was similar to the Calamity Transcender technique and the heaven-swallowing demonic art. The blood essence of so many cultivators was a great supplement, so how could Yi Xian let it go? In fact, Yi Xian had a cruel idea before. Before he left the Northern Region, he wanted to turn the entire Northern Region Celestial Court into a land of death. He wanted to devour the Northern Region Celestial Court, formed by the dozen or so undying beings, and the 6 great sections. He wanted to use them as food to increase his own cultivation. However, Yi Xian thought about it and gave up on this idea. After all, the Northern Region Celestial Court had contributed a lot to him. Although he could kill the donkey after it had outlived its usefulness, Daoist Green Ghost and the other undying beings had worked hard. That was why this scene had appeared. Since they were traitors, there was nothing to say. In Yi Xian's creed, those who betrayed him could only die. Boom! Boom! The 10 blood spirits swallowed the heavens and devoured the earth. The sky-splitting bloody light covered the heavens and the earth. The blood-colored grand formation that blotted out the sky rotated in a terrifying manner. Numerous terrifying blood-colored ribbons descended, directly transforming this part of the world into a land of death. Bang! A blood-colored waterfall streaked across the sky, and an unknown number of living beings and cultivators were reduced to ashes. A large amount of essence energy spread out, and was directly absorbed by the heaven-shrouding blood array. Before these cultivators died, they did not even have the time to let out a wretched cry. Bang! 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 The blood-red light filled the sky. This 10-direction blood spirit swallowing the heavens formation could be said to be an amplified version of the Calamity Transcender technique and the heaven-swallowing demonic art. Especially when combined with the Star Origin art, the power of this formation had reached an unimaginable level. Die all of you! Yi Xian formed a seal with both hands and blood-red runes shot out from his hands. The blood formation rotated at a terrifying speed, and the blood-red light it released was even more terrifying. Cultivators below the immortal realm couldn't resist it at all. Ah! Sect Master, save me! No! The cultivators, who were originally like dragons and tigers, were now fleeing in terror. Miserable wails could be heard coming from their mouths. A large number of cultivators were crying for help from Dark North Sect Master and the others. However, Dark North Sect Master and Old Demon Bei Meng were busy defending against the attacks of the blood-devouring light. How could they have the time to save these cultivators? Boom boom boom. The blood-red light filled the sky, suppressing the world. Inside the 10-direction blood spirit swallowing the heavens formation, only those in the immortal realm could resist it. The rest were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. After their deaths, their blood energy and cultivation were all devoured by the heavens swallowing the heavens formation. Their bodies turned into white bones and fell from the sky. The sky was filled with white bones, and they fell to the ground like meteors. The miserable howls of ghosts and gods resounded through the world, accompanied by a downpour of blood rain. Only Yi Xian's hideous laughter resounded in the world. Roar! Suddenly, like the roar of an ancient beast, Yi Xian opened his mouth, and a sinister expression appeared on his face. Terrifying black fog spread out. The 10-direction blood spirit swallowing the heavens formation rotated crazily at this moment, and streams of extremely pure energy were swallowed by Yi Xian. Buzz! Yi Xian's body swayed as strands of terrifying aura burst out. The blurry heaven gate appeared behind him, and it was glowing faintly as it gradually took shape. There were millions of cultivators who had died. They had all turned into bones, and their cultivation had been devoured by Yi Xian. Not only did this increase Yi Xian's ferocity, it also increased the speed at which he opened the first heaven gate. Not enough, still not enough. Yi Xian roared ferociously. Even though he had devoured the blood energy and cultivation of millions of cultivators, he was still a distance away from opening the first heaven gate. Moreover, Yi Xian's heart was beating violently, because he could feel that there was something calling to him from the first heaven gate he had opened. Break! Suddenly, a furious roar that could shatter the sky rang out. Old Demon Bei Meng and Hierarch Bai Ming attacked at the same time. The two great figures who had opened the fourth heaven gate were indeed terrifying. With a joint attack, they shattered the 10-direction blood spirit swallowing the heavens formation. Boom! Yi Xian's face turned gloomy when the blood formation was broken. However, this was all within his expectations. After all, it would be a joke if two great figures who had opened the fourth heaven gate died in the 100,000 blood spirit swallowing the heavens formation. Fellow Taoists, please kill this demon and return the eternal sky to our North Star starfield. Taoist God Might was panting. The other undying beings who had betrayed Yi Xian were also pale. They all bowed to Old Demon Bei Meng and Hierarch Bai Ming, because Yi Xian's means were too terrifying. Millions of cultivators had died in the formation. This was simply unimaginable. Boom! Suddenly, a giant hand covered the sky. The terrifying undying power shattered the heaven and earth, and it smashed onto Taoist God Might and the other undying beings with a terrifying power that could destroy mountains and rivers. Bang! Wah! Taoist God Might and the other undying beings had only opened the first heaven gate. Among them, there were two who had not even opened the first heaven gate. This attack instantly caused them to spit out blood and fall to the ground. However, this was not the end. The giant hand was too terrifying. It instantly grabbed them and pulled them to Yi Xian. How terrifying was Yi Xian, who had stepped into the undying realm. Taoist God Might and the others could not resist a single attack. After all, Yi Xian could kill an undying being when he was in the Tao querying realm, let alone when he had already stepped into the undying realm. Save me. No. Fellow Taoist Bei Meng, Hierarch Bai Ming, Taoist Divine Might, and the others spat out blood as they looked at Yi Xian in front of them with faces full of fear. Terrified cries for help came from their mouths. However, the surprising thing was that old demon Bei Meng and hierarch Bai Ming did not move at all. The two of them stood side by side and stared at Yi Xian with deep eyes. They were indifferent to the life and death of Taoist God Might and the other undying beings. Hierarch, spare us. Hierarch, spare us. Hierarch, we were wrong. Please give us another chance. It was Taoist God Might. It was he who instigated us to betray you. Hierarch, spare us. The void was suppressed and their cultivation was sealed. The undying beings begged for mercy and horror. Although they did not cry, their faces were filled with horror, because they could feel that death was so close to them. Gigi. Yi Xian revealed a mouthful of white teeth, as he looked at the rebellious immortals in front of him. That wisp of white light flickered between his teeth, and it was even more like the fangs of a demon, causing people to feel fear. If you want to be my dog, you have to be obedient. If you don't listen and want to bite your master, I can only send you on your way, said Yi Xian coldly. Chapter 1505. No. Sensing Yi Xian's terrifying killing intent, Taoist Divine Might screamed in terror. However, in the next moment, he could no longer scream, because he was completely dead. Why Yi Xian stretched out his arms and directly tore Taoist Divine Might into pieces in the void. A large amount of blood splattered high up in the sky. As Yi Xian opened his mouth, a terrifying black fog spread out and directly devoured Taoist Divine Might's cultivation. All of you die for me. At this moment, Yi Xian was too terrifying and too incomprehensible. His entire being was as terrifying and ferocious as a primordial beast. He directly tore apart the remaining immortals in the void and crazily devoured their cultivation bases. Blood rained down and a vicious aura filled the sky. Yi Xian's ferocious aura filled the sky, and his vicious aura surged, causing people who looked at him to feel extreme fear. How was this a human? This was clearly a bloodthirsty beast. Clap, clap, clap. Suddenly, a series of rhythmic claps rang out. Old Demon Bei Meng and Hierarch Dark North slowly walked over, and only stopped when they were about 30 meters away from Yi Xian. Yi Xian, you are truly formidable. Back then, not only did you not die at the hands of the strongest of all eternity, you are even stirring up trouble in the northern region today. The two of us truly admire you to the extreme. Old Demon Bei Meng praised again and again. He was not frightened by Yi Xian's ferocious aura. Instead, he directly exposed Yi Xian's identity. Hierarch Dark North slowly nodded and said, Actually, I've always been suspicious of your identity and guessed that you weren't a nobody. However, I never thought that you would be Yi Xian. Pausing slightly, Hierarch Dark North looked at Yi Xian in a teasing way and continued. But I doubt one thing. Rumor has it that you killed the most powerful devil in the world. This rumor is a bit exaggerated. As soon as the two of them finished speaking, Fatty Huang and Gu Beichen's expressions changed. They didn't think that the two of them would actually know of Yi Xian's true body. As for Taoist Qing Gui and the other four immortals, their expressions changed as they looked at Yi Xian in astonishment. Obviously, having their identities exposed by Old Devil Bei Meng and Old Devil Bei Meng greatly shocked Green Ghost and the other immortals. They'd naturally heard of Yi Xian's name before. After all, such a huge matter had happened in the central region, so they'd naturally heard of it. At this moment, Yi Xian was completely unperturbed when the two old demons revealed his identity. It was as if he had already expected this. Instead, he looked at the two of them with a smile. Not bad, you found out my identity so quickly. The two of you didn't disappoint me. Yi Xian said softly, You admit that you are Yi Xian? Hierarch Dark North's expression changed slightly. Although he and Old Devil Northern Mang had enough evidence to prove Yi Xian's identity, they were still greatly shocked when Yi Xian admitted it himself. So what if I admit it? So what if I don't admit it? Whether I am Yi Xian or not, the two of you can only die today. There is no difference. Yi Xian said indifferently. Ha ha ha. Old Devil Bai Ming laughed wildly, as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. When his laughter stopped, his expression was extremely cold as he said, Yi Xian, I have to say that I admire your arrogance. However, Arrogance comes with a price because you'll never know how great the gap between the immortal realm and the immortal realm is. Extreme Hell Heavenly Devil. Rumble. The sky darkened as demonic light covered the sky. 4 heavenly gates rose behind Old Devil Northern Mang. Terrifying roars could be heard as the world within 100 million miles turned pitch black. Countless demonic shadows roared and wreaked havoc in the void. Old Devil Northern Mang's aura was also rising steadily. Just the power he unleashed was enough to cause the surrounding space to crack. Great divine ability? Looking at the countless demonic shadows wreaking havoc in the world, Yi Xian was slightly stunned. Then, he immediately identified the technique Old Devil Northern Mang was using. You are quite knowledgeable. Puff, 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 puff. The demonic shadows wreaked havoc in the sky. Old Devil Northern Mang's entire body became illusory and unpredictable. The strange aura around him became more and more unpredictable, which made Yi Xian frown slightly. 9 heavenly gates, 4 stages. When I opened the 4th heavenly gate, and officially stepped into the 2nd stage of the immortal realm, I comprehended this extreme hell heavenly devil's great divine ability. As for you, you have only just stepped into the immortal realm. You will never understand how terrifying I am after opening the 4th heavenly gate. Today, I will let you die under this extreme hell heavenly devil's great divine ability. Old Devil Northern Mang laughed maniacally. The demonic shadows that filled the sky howled. Every single one of them was strange and unpredictable. It was impossible to tell which one was real, and which one was fake. Moreover, it gave one a feeling of death. Northern Mang's cold sky. Rumble. At the same time, 4 heavenly gates rose behind Sect Master Northern Mang. The 4 heavenly gates rumbled and rotated. The Northern Mang's cold light covered the entire sky. Terrifying glaciers rose from the ground. Cold winds howled and snow filled the sky. Coupled with Old Devil Northern Mang's extreme hell heavenly devil's great divine ability, the entire world within 100 million miles was instantly transformed into a terrifying land of death. Interesting. Yi Xian's brows relaxed as he looked at the scene before him. His entire body regained its calm as he sized up the two's great divine abilities with interest. His pair of Dharma eyes of annihilation even took in all of their great divine abilities. What was a great divine ability? There were many types of great divine abilities. Some were cultivated by oneself, while some were opened by oneself. Take Yi Xian's external incarnation for example. It was a great divine ability. However, this great divine ability had a slim chance of survival. Very few people were able to cultivate it. However, those who managed to cultivate this great divine ability were all people with outstanding talents. They were also known as monstrous geniuses. The other type was like Old Devil Northern Mang and Sect Master Northern Mang. As long as they opened the 4th heavenly gate, they would be able to discover and comprehend a great divine ability. This great divine ability could be called an innate divine ability. It was also a divine ability that was compatible with one's body. However, this innate divine ability differed from person to person. Some people had terrifying potential. The great divine ability they discovered was extremely terrifying. They could even rely on this great divine ability to fight enemies one realm higher than them. However, some people had very little potential. The great divine ability they discovered was just passable. It was only slightly stronger than some secret techniques. Thus, there was a huge gap between them. However, Old Devil Northern Mang and Sect Master Northern Mang possessed extraordinary talents. Although they were not at the level of heaven-defying geniuses, the great divine abilities they had comprehended could be considered mid-level. For Yi Xian, a cultivator who had just stepped into the sempiternal stage, their great divine abilities had an innate advantage over him. This was also the reason why the two of them were confident that they could kill Yi Xian. Yi Xian, hand over the Heavenbreaker cauldron. Otherwise, you will die without a burial place. Sect Master Northern Mang shouted coldly. Yi Xian, no matter how heaven-defying your combat power is, your cultivation base is still here. You are no match for our great divine abilities. Hand over the Heavenbreaker cauldron. Old Devil Northern Mang said solemnly. Great divine ability? Ha ha ha. Yi Xian laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. In his pair of law eyes of annihilation, The divine abilities of these two were indeed powerful. However, they were still far from the great divine abilities in Yi Xian's eyes. What was a great divine ability? In Yi Xian's eyes, the so-called great divine ability was the Tongtian earth-shaking technique. A great divine ability could suppress and destroy the earth. Although he did not dare to say that it was comparable to a taboo technique, it was definitely at the level of an ancient great technique. Although these two's great divine abilities were not bad, they were still far from the great divine abilities in Yi Xian's eyes. Therefore, Yi Xian did not put them in his eyes at all. Moreover, Yi Xian had a taboo technique that he hadn't used for a long time. He hadn't used this taboo technique for a long time, and this technique was the greatest nemesis of this so-called great ability. Come, let me see what kind of abilities the two of you have. Yi Xian smiled strangely and beckoned to the two of them. Chapter 1506. In the chaotic starry sky, in the boundless universe, the sea of stars was churning, and the great stars were rotating. Dazzling streams of light streaked across the starry sky, outlining a beautiful starry sky map. Puff! 3 streams of light quietly arrived. Yi Xian slowly turned his head and looked at the two behind him. The evil smile on his face grew wider and wider. When he looked at Old Demon Northern Mang and Dark North Hierarch, his eyes were filled with a hint of playfulness. Yi Xian looked too calm. His calmness made the hearts of the two tremble violently. Even their great divine abilities were somewhat unstable. They looked at each other and saw the heavy look in each other's eyes. Although the two of them had opened the 4th gate of heaven and comprehended their own great divine abilities, they were still extremely afraid of Yi Xian, because Yi Xian was just too famous. Moreover, after a few rounds of fighting, the two of them had suffered great losses and almost died in the hands of Yi Xian. How could they not be afraid of Yi Xian? Calm down. He's just a beginner immortal. No matter how powerful he is, there's still a huge gap between our realms. It'll be easy for us to kill him together. Old Demon Northern Mang secretly transmitted his voice to encourage Dark North Hierarch. Kill! Dark North Hierarch understood tacitly. With a roar, glaciers spread across the starry sky. The terrifying cold current of 100,000 miles turned into a river of ice. This was his great divine ability, and he directly launched it at Yi Xian. Extreme Hell Heavenly Devil. Old Demon Northern Mang didn't want to fall behind. The demonic shadows that filled the sky roared ferociously and turned into beams of demonic light that shot towards Yi Xian. This part of the starry sky was exploding. The two Immortal Realm experts unleashed their full strength, trying to kill Yi Xian in the shortest time possible. Rumble! The 100,000 miles of river of ice arrived with a loud rumble. The demonic shadows that filled the sky roared. The two great divine abilities smashed towards Yi Xian. On the other hand, Yi Xian remained motionless. He didn't even try to dodge, as if he was ready to take the attack head-on. Buried heaven! Yi Xian smiled coldly. His body glowed, and terrifying gray halos spread out. His body was like a gray golden sun, blooming with extremely dazzling light at this moment. Boom! The 100,000 miles of ice river smashed onto Yi Xian's body. The demonic shadows that filled the sky crazily coiled around his body, causing the light on Yi Xian's body to flicker as he flew backwards. Kill! Old Demon Beimang and Old Demon Beimang became overjoyed, and they unleashed their grand divine abilities once more. Next, the starry space within a radius of billions of li transformed into a world of frost sky demonic shadows. Endless killing energy swirled towards Yi Xian, accompanied by terrifying killing techniques. That's all. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out, followed by a terrifying bang. Yi Xian, who was engulfed by the two great divine arts, slowly walked out. The light emitted from his body seemed to make him invulnerable. The so-called Ice River Demon shadow vanished like bubbles. How can this be? Such a scene instantly caused Old Devil Beiming and the Dark North Hierarch to speak in shock. This was their great divine ability, so why didn't it cause any harm to Yi Xian? What a joke! The two of you are really a joke. Yi Xian slowly walked towards the two, and a mocking voice came from his mouth. You two have only just started cultivating your divine abilities. You are not even proficient in using them. And yet you dare to come and find me? Calling you stupid is already giving you too much credit. Today, I will send you on your way. Yi Xian's physical body had withstood their grand divine abilities head-on. Although he spoke casually, Yi Xian's heart was heavy. Although the two had just finished cultivating their grand divine abilities, they indeed possessed terrifying might. But fortunately, Yi Xian's body was unharmed, and he was able to withstand their attacks. This was also a trial for his own body, to see if he could withstand the immortal realm expert, who had opened the fourth gate of heaven. Fortunately, Yi Xian succeeded. The heaven's burial physique he had forged was indeed powerful. Even the grand divine abilities of the two didn't damage it. Boom! Just as old demon Beimang and old demon Beimang's hearts were palpitating, Yi Xian suddenly attacked. His 5 fingers were like a giant hand from the heavens, directly sucking in hundreds of stars, causing the starry universe to rumble. Chi! 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 The starry sky exploded, and stars fell from the sky. Hundreds of stars covered the sky, and smashed towards the two with terrifying might that could destroy the world. Break! It had to be said that the two of them had indeed opened the fourth gate of heaven. With just a raise of their hands, they unleashed immortal realm grand techniques, directly blasting hundreds of stars to pieces. Let me see how powerful the two of you have become after opening the fourth gate of heaven. Boom! Suddenly, Yi Xian strangely appeared in front of the two of them. When he swung his arms, the starry sky exploded. 2 fist radiances that were as heavy as ancient stars blasted towards the two of them with the power to destroy the starry sky. Be careful! In the face of Yi Xian's terrifying attack, old demon Beimang raised his voice. He directly unleashed his demonic physique, and also punched back at Yi Xian. Sect Master Beimang's cold light flashed. His entire body seemed to be covered in ice crystals, as he also punched at Yi Xian. Bang! Bang! The starry sky exploded and shattered in all directions, accompanied by a large amount of blood spilling down. Old demon Beimang and Sect Master Beimang's faces were distorted. Their fists were badly mangled, and one could faintly see the white bones. Clearly, the two of them were no match for Yi Xian in a physical confrontation. They really are 2 pieces of trash. Yi Xian sneered. He had the upper hand, and didn't allow anyone to take advantage of him. 2 fist radiances that were as heavy as the heavens smashed towards the two of them. Clearly, if this attack landed, the two of them would be killed in the starry sky. You are too presumptuous. You dare? At the same time, old demon Beimang and Sect Master Beimang furiously roared. A terrifying aura burst out as 4 heavenly gates appeared behind them. The two of them unleashed their great divine abilities. This time, the eruption was several times more terrifying than before. It actually sent Yi Xian flying. Clearly, the two of them had only used their great divine abilities to test Yi Xian's strength. Now that they were truly going to fight, the two of them no longer held back. Boom! 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 The starry sky filled the sky. In the next moment, Sect Master Beimang and old demon Beimang completely fused into their great divine abilities. The two of them turned into 2 streams of light, making it impossible for others to sense their auras. Kill! Before Yi Xian could even stabilize himself, a terrifying cold current smashed onto his back, causing him to stagger. The blood energy in his inner palace surged even more crazily. However, it wasn't over yet. A terrifying demonic shadow suddenly drilled into Yi Xian's head, accompanied by old demon Beimang's creepy laughter. His great divine ability was actually targeting the soul. This great divine ability could be said to be extremely vicious. Rumble! At the same time, the 4 heavenly gates of the two of them rotated at a terrifying speed. It was as if 8 vortexes were pouring out terrifying primal chaos laws. This boosted the two of them even more, instantly turning the starry sky into a land of death. Chapter 1507. Bang! 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 Although Yi Xian's fleshly body was unblemished, the two of them were sempiternal realm experts who had opened the 4th gate of heaven. Moreover, they were using their great divine abilities to attack Yi Xian. As a result, Yi Xian fell into a disadvantageous position. Moreover, he was actually unable to locate the two of them. The great divine abilities were indeed unfathomable, causing Yi Xian to suffer greatly. Fortunately, his fleshly body was unparalleled. In the face of the terrifying attacks from the two of them, he was only pushed back. They were unable to seriously injure him. The so-called great divine abilities are not only capable of killing enemies, they are also compatible with the laws of primal chaos. Today, you will die without a proper burial ground. Old Devil Northern Mang's ghostly silhouettes appeared one after another, while sect leader Dark North transformed into a beam of cold light. The two of them joined forces and unleashed all sorts of killing techniques. Coupled with their great divine abilities, their might could be described as overwhelming. Wang. Suddenly Yi Xian disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already a million li away. This caused the two of them to be stunned. However, in the next moment, they once again charged towards Yi Xian. Eyes of annihilation. When Yi Xian's eyes opened and closed, his pupils were as mysterious and profound as the primal chaos of the universe. At this moment, they were rotating in a terrifying manner. The world in front of him instantly changed, and all sorts of trajectories appeared in his eyes. He could even clearly see the trajectories of Old Demon Baiming and Hierarch Baiming as they charged towards him. Bang! This punch pierced through the void, and the terrifying fist light accurately landed on the two of them. The two of them were sent flying while blood continuously spurted out from their mouths. Dark North Hantian. Heavenly Demon Extreme Hell. The two of them roared furiously in unison. Instantly, they stabilized their flying figures. Blood continued to spurt out from their mouths. Due to the fact that Yi Xian's fleshly body was simply too terrifying, this one attack had already injured them. However, this was not the reason why the two of them were alarmed. The thing that alarmed them the most was how Yi Xian had managed to find their tracks. One had to know that their great divine powers had already merged with the law of primal chaos. Their entire being was in between reality and illusion. This was also an ability unique to those who had opened the fourth heavenly gate. The fourth divine gate is only SSO, Yi Xian said disdainfully. He had finally lost all interest in the two of them. This was because Yi Xian had discovered that the second stage of the sempiternal realm was indeed very powerful. Their combat prowess was 10 times stronger than the first stage. Moreover, they also had the so-called great divine art to suppress their enemies. Yi Xian was certain that if he was still at the Dao querying realm, he would not be a match for the two of them. Any one of them could kill him. However, when he stepped into the immortal realm, his entire being had undergone a qualitative transformation, whether it was his body, cultivation base, or even his already heaven-defying fighting strength. Therefore, the two of them were not a match for him at all. Yi Xian could easily crush the two of them. The only troublesome thing was their great divine arts. However, with the law Eye of Destruction, Yi Xian could predict the movements of the two of them. The great divine arts of the two of them were only SSO in Yi Xian's eyes. These so-called great divine arts were only strange and unpredictable to Yi Xian. In Yi Xian's eyes, their power was too ordinary. They were not on the same level as the great divine arts that Yi Xian knew. Have you played enough? This is really boring. Let me send the two of you on your way. Dong dong dong. Yi Xian slowly walked forward. With each step he took, the entire starry sky shook. A wisp of killing intent quietly shrouded the two of them. Arrogant, Old Demon Baimang and Hierarch Dark North roared. However, there was fear in their eyes. This was because their great divine arts were unable to do anything to Yi Xian. This was a huge blow to them. Dark North Chilling Sky. Extreme Hell Heavenly Demon. The two of them once again used their so-called great divine arts, as if this was their only means. Suppress. This time, Yi Xian didn't hold back in the slightest. The Tribulation Immortal Transformation and the attack character technique exploded out, and the Dharma Eye of Annihilation rotated in a terrifying manner. He slowly stretched out his 5 fingers, and they were like 5 pillars that supported the heavens as they smashed down towards Old Demon Baimang and Old Demon Baimang. This attack not only contained the power of Yi Xian's physical body, but also his terrifying cultivation. Under the lock of the Law Eye of Destruction, the two of them could not dodge at all. Bang! Suppressing the world and shattering the galaxy, Yi Xian's attack fiercely fell on the two of them, causing them to cough up large mouthfuls of blood. Cracks began to appear on their bodies like spider webs. Buzz! In the next moment, without waiting for the two of them to react, Yi Xian appeared in front of the two of them. His two palms pressed down on their heads as a cruel and sinister smile appeared on his face. Tribulation Transcender Devour. Roar! Yi Xian let out a roar like that of an ancient beast. A terrifying black light appeared in his palms, directly acting on the heads of Old Demon Beimeng and Dark North Sect Master. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying thing happened. Ah! No! The two of them screamed miserably, because their flesh and blood were melting at a terrifying speed. A mysterious brilliance poured from their heads into Yi Xian's palms. Yi Xian was actually devouring the great divine arts that the two of them had just cultivated. Tribulation Transcenders Devour. This was a forbidden technique, contained in the small cauldron. This technique had no other use except to devour the innate abilities of others. In the past, Yi Xian had used the Tribulation Transcenders Devour to devour the space-time abilities of Dijiang and the Candle Dragon, laying the foundation for him to cultivate the power of space-time. However, ever since that time, Yi Xian had rarely used this forbidden technique. This was because the function of the Tribulation Transcenders Devour was too simple. Besides devouring the innate abilities of others, it had no other use. However, when Yi Xian stepped into the Immortal realm, he finally discovered the terrifying and heaven-defying aspect of the Tribulation Transcenders Devour. Any Immortal realm expert who opened the fourth gate of heaven would comprehend a great divine art. This could be said to be their innate ability. Yi Xian's Tribulation Transcenders Devour was the nemesis of great divine arts. Just think about it. No matter whose great divine art it was, Yi Xian could devour it and make it his own. Just this function alone was heaven-defying, and it also made Yi Xian have a great suppressive effect on Immortal realm experts. The Tribulation Transcenders Devour could be said to be the nemesis of great divine arts. This forbidden technique had been dormant for countless years, and it had finally reappeared in Yi Xian's hands. Yi Xian also finally understood one thing. The forbidden technique, contained in this small cauldron, was the supreme technique of the primal chaos universe. Its true function could only be displayed in the Immortal realm. My great divine art. What kind of evil technique is this? Old Demon Northern Mang and Hierarch Dark North screamed in horror. All that was left of them was skin and bones, as if their bodies had been hollowed out. They could feel that their great divine arts had completely disappeared, and they were flowing into Yi Xian's body like water. Die! Yi Xian had completely lost interest in the two. His palms suddenly shook, directly shattering the bodies of the two. A large amount of blood energy and cultivation turned into a rolling river that was swallowed into Yi Xian's stomach. Boom! Yi Xian sat cross-legged, his entire body shaking. Not only had he devoured the great divine arts of the two, but he had also used the Tribulation Transcenders technique to devour their cultivation. At this moment, Yi Xian's cultivation was skyrocketing. He wanted to borrow the cultivation of the two to open the first gate of heaven in one fell swoop, allowing his cultivation to take another step forward. Chapter 1508. Thump, thump, thump. The thump grew louder and louder. Yi Xian's body began to tremble. Then the most shocking thing happened. A blurry gate of heaven appeared behind him, gradually solidifying. Rumble! The gate of heaven trembled and shone with a terrifying light. The light wasn't blinding, but it distorted the entire space. It seemed to break away from the world itself, giving off a feeling of grandeur. Open! Yi Xian opened his eyes in terror. His eyes were like the stars of ancient times. A vast and heavy presence erupted from him. The gate of heaven behind him began to rotate. Mysterious streaks of light fell from the gate of heaven, radiating a presence that terrified even Yi Xian. This is reincarnation. Yi Xian blurted out in shock. His entire mind seemed to freeze. He was so shocked by this that he couldn't speak. His heart was in turmoil. Reincarnation. It was a simple word, but it contained an extraordinary meaning. It contained the greatest terror of the Chaos verse. In the past, Yi Xian had fought against the Lord of Extreme Fiends. He had used otherworldly transfiguration to open the gate of reincarnation. Although the gate of reincarnation had only been created by him, and wasn't the true gate of reincarnation, it had still caused unimaginable damage to the Lord of Extreme Fiends. It had even allowed him to kill the Lord of Extreme Fiends in a single stroke, completing an unprecedented feat today. Yi Xian had opened the first gate of heaven. The presence that came from the gate of heaven was actually vaguely similar to the presence that the gate of reincarnation had released. This left Yi Xian utterly shocked. Yi Xian knew exactly how terrifying the gate of reincarnation was. It was something that even the primordial chaos feared, something that involved the greatest secrets of the chaos verse. Yi Xian could never have imagined that his first heavenly gate would actually emit reincarnation energy. Yi Xian simply couldn't believe it. Something's wrong. This is not the gate of reincarnation. But it contains a trace of the profound of reincarnation. In the next moment, Yi Xian instantly calmed down. He calmed his heart and comprehended his first heaven gate. He finally discovered that it wasn't the gate of reincarnation. It was just the qi that descended from it that contained a trace of the profound meaning of reincarnation. Wang. Suddenly, something happened that caught Yi Xian off guard. The space between Yi Xian's eyebrows glowed. The heaven-destroying halberd actually appeared in the outside world without Yi Xian summoning it. However, this wasn't the end. What happened next left Yi Xian stunned. The void rippled, and the ancient bronze scripture quietly appeared. Its simple and unadorned pages kept flipping. Vaguely, one could see 5 small cauldrons glowing on the pages, releasing a mysterious qi that had never been seen before. At the same time, the entire starry sky became illusory, and the sound of chanting could be faintly heard from the void of the heavens. That ancient, deep, and mysterious voice filled Yi Xian's ears, and the first heaven gate above his head rotated in a terrifying manner. What's going on? Yi Xian listened to the chanting in shock. Looking at the heaven-destroying halberd and the ancient bronze scripture in front of him, he fell into a state of shock. The heaven-destroying halberd and the ancient bronze scripture had always accompanied him as he grew up. They had existed since he was a teenager and had followed him through countless years. The reason he could grow to where he was today was inseparable from these two things. However, what he saw today overturned Yi Xian's understanding. The heaven-destroying halberd and the ancient bronze scripture actually appeared in the outside world, without his control. At this moment, they were releasing an extremely mysterious and ancient qi. This ancient and mysterious qi was actually connected to the qi of the first gate of heaven that he opened. A trace of the profound meaning of reincarnation appeared. Time seemed to stop and space seemed to freeze. At this moment, Yi Xian's thoughts stopped. He could only stare blankly at the scene in front of him. However, the chanting in his ears became louder and louder. At the beginning of time, the chaos was obscure. This scripture was too ancient and obscure, as if it came from an extremely distant era. It seemed to be telling an ancient and mysterious story to Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's mind was in a trance. Under this ancient and mysterious chanting, blurry images that he had never seen before appeared before his eyes. In these images, there were terrifying creatures roaring in the chaos. There were even people who struck out with their spears, causing the chaos to explode. There were also people who held chessboards and set up the world. The black and white chess pieces were like ancient stars that exploded in the chaos. There were also mysterious creatures that were billions of miles tall. They danced wildly in the chaotic universe. Their terrifying power suppressed everything in all directions. That ancient and ferocious voice rang out in terror. However, as a beam of light streaked across the chaotic universe, these creatures all howled and retreated. They all disappeared before Yi Xian's eyes. Instantly, Yi Xian woke up. What just happened? Yi Xian murmured in bewilderment. It was because the images he saw shocked him greatly. It was only because of those terrifying creatures that his heart was shaken. It was also because he truly understood what true strength was. Yi Xian was absolutely certain that the images he saw just now must have happened in the distant past. He was even more certain that these creatures had surpassed the strongest of all time. This should be the so-called Forbidden Realm. Before Yi Xian could think about the horror in detail, What happened next immediately pulled him back to reality. Buzz. It was as if the chaotic universe was buzzing. It was as if the water of the 9 heavens was hanging upside down. The gate of heaven suspended above Yi Xian's head was spinning terrifyingly. Streams of samsara chi drooped down, targeting Yi Xian. However, this was not what shocked Yi Xian. What really shocked him was that the heaven-destroying halberd and the bronze immortal sutra actually crossed in an extremely strange manner. In an instant, they turned into a strange symbol that shot towards him. Boom! In the next moment, Yi Xian felt as if he had been hit by the eternal sky. His thoughts dissipated in an instant. It was as if he no longer existed in the chaotic universe. However, in the outside world, Yi Xian's body was towering and unmoving. A mysterious symbol suddenly appeared on his forehead. This symbol seemed to be some kind of text that was directly engraved on Yi Xian's forehead. Then it quietly disappeared. Rumble! The gate of heaven roared and its chi drooped down. It was as if the water of the 9 heavens was hanging upside down. It madly surged into Yi Xian's body. The mysterious and terrifying qi exploded around Yi Xian, causing Yi Xian to sink into a mysterious state of enlightenment. The heavens chant, the body is like the universe. The mysterious and ancient chanting grew louder and louder. Yi Xian's entire body became illusory until he completely disappeared. It was as if he had never existed in the chaotic universe. Chapter 1509. A mysterious aura flowed through the starry sky. The first heaven gate that Yi Xian had opened still existed in the starry sky. Only Yi Xian had disappeared. This scene was extremely strange. Time passed bit by bit. The sutra chanting gradually dissipated until the starry sky returned to its calm state. The heaven gate that stood in the starry sky also dissipated. Wang. Like a ripple spreading out, a figure gently walked out of the void. It was Yi Xian, who had just mysteriously disappeared. Yi Xian's appearance was calm and collected, as if his appearance was a process that had come from nothing. However, at this moment, Yi Xian was too mysterious. Although he had reappeared in the starry sky, his eyes were closed and he did not move. The most shocking thing was that the mysterious symbol had appeared on his forehead once again. It was flickering faintly on his forehead. Boom! Suddenly Yi Xian moved. This movement immediately caused a terrifying change that shocked the heavens and earth, and made ghosts and gods weep. His fist rose. Yi Xian closed his eyes and did not speak. His fist swung the universe, causing the starry sky to explode inch by inch. It turned into a land of nothingness. His fist fell. A fist beam streaked across the void, and pierced through the distant starry sky. Wherever it passed, the starry sky no longer existed and all living things withered. The fist rose and fell, dancing in the starry sky. Yi Xian still had his eyes closed, and did not speak. The mysterious symbol on his forehead flickered even more intensely. Yi Xian seemed to have transformed into a beam of light. When his fist rose and fell, it caused the starry sky and universe to dissipate for billions of miles. An eternal dream, burying the primal chaos and breaking the cycle of samsara. Eternal sorrow, eternal sigh. These ancient and lonely words came out of Yi Xian's mouth. He slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were lonely and deep. He did not move and did not speak. It was as if he was still immersed in a state that he could not extricate himself from. Who am I? Yi Xian was silent for a long time. He muttered to himself in a daze, and asked himself a very simple question. However, it was also this question that left his eyes perplexed. The symbol on his forehead flickered intensely, until it began to disappear into his forehead. Boom! The next moment, Yi Xian suddenly woke up. It was as if he wasn't himself just now. He looked at his hands blankly, and tried hard to recall what had just happened. 10,000 ancient reincarnation fist? This? Yi Xian muttered in a daze. It was because a profundity that even he could not comprehend had appeared in his mind. This profundity was the eternal reincarnation fist that he spoke of, and it was only a single punch. Great divine ability? That's not right. I've only opened the first heavenly gate. How could a great divine ability appear? Yi Xian whispered in surprise. He confusedly looked at his fists. Although the reincarnation power Upanishad was weak and almost undetectable, it did appear on his body. What just happened? Yi Xian muttered in a daze. He began to examine his own body, and discovered that the ancient bronze scripture and the heaven-destroying halberd still existed in his sea of consciousness. There was not the slightest change. Only a mysterious symbol had suddenly appeared between the two. This is... Yi Xian's soul gently touched this mysterious symbol. But what disappointed Yi Xian was that his soul could not even get close to this symbol. No matter how he tried to channel this mysterious symbol, there was no reaction from it. Yi Xian's consciousness returned to his body. He became silent. What had just happened was too strange. Although he could remember what had happened, the feeling of being at a loss made him very confused. Eternal Reincarnation Fist? Yi Xian looked at his hands in confusion. He was sure that he had learned this fist. This was also his great divine ability. It should be something that he had comprehended when he opened the first heavenly gate. Very strong indeed. So strong that even Yi Xian himself felt fear. But as for how strong it was, Yi Xian could not be sure. However, this strength made Yi Xian's mind tremble slightly. This was a true great divine ability. This was a great divine ability that Yi Xian knew. It was not something that the great divine abilities of old demon Northern Mang and the others could compare with. Puff! Suddenly, a mouthful of blood spurted out from Yi Xian's mouth. His body suddenly staggered, and he nearly fell from the starry sky. His face was extremely pale. My cultivation? Yi Xian tried his best to stabilize his body. However, he suddenly realized that his cultivation was less than a tenth of it. This made him inexplicably shocked. But in the next moment, Yi Xian suddenly came to a realization. He instantly understood why his cultivation had been depleted so much. Eternal Reincarnation Fist. Just as Yi Xian had thought, he had fallen into an inexplicable state to execute the Eternal Reincarnation Fist. This great divine ability was indeed terrifying. However, it had greatly depleted his cultivation. Even though Yi Xian had executed the Eternal Reincarnation Fist, his entire body had fallen into a state of weakness. Although the Eternal Reincarnation Fist was terrifying, it could not be executed at full strength. Otherwise, if he could not kill the enemy, he would be completely depleted by this fist technique and fall into an extremely weak state. Yi Xian instantly came to a realization. He had a preliminary understanding of the Eternal Reincarnation Fist. The starry sky was still and silent. Yi Xian's eyes were deep and confused. Although he had obtained the extremely terrifying great divine ability of the Eternal Reincarnation Fist, he was still brooding over what had happened to him. The strange movements of the heaven-destroying halberd and the ancient bronze scripture, the mysterious and ancient chanting of the scripture, and the appearance of the profound meaning of reincarnation. All of these proved that something inconceivable had happened to him. Yi Xian had never believed that he was the reincarnation of some almighty being. He also did not believe that he was the reincarnation of some forbidden being. This was because he had always believed that he was only himself and not anyone else. However, the things that had happened to him were too strange. It was as if there was an invisible hand manipulating him and pushing him forward. The owner of this hand was extremely terrifying to Yi Xian. The strongest of all eternity could not do it. Even forbidden beings could not do it. These were the two strongest realms that Yi Xian knew. However, other than the strongest of all eternity and forbidden beings, who else could be so terrifying? According to legend, the Master of Fate controlled the trajectory of all living things. His power of fate was one of the three most mysterious powers in the Chaos Verse. He could control the fate of all living things with a single thought. According to legend, the river of fate marked the life of every living thing. Their lives were predetermined. If one wanted to change their life, they had to enter the river of fate to change the course of a person's life. Or they had to completely erase that person's life. However, Yi Xian knew one thing very well. He was not controlled by the Chaos Verse. Even the river of fate did not affect his life. The three great rivers, the river of chaos, the river of fate, and the river of time. The three great rivers had existed for eternity. Even the strongest of all eternity could only control them. However, they were not the masters of the three great rivers. They could not use the three great rivers as they pleased. This was because the three great rivers involved the very foundation of the chaos verse. As for the forbidden beings, Yi Xian did not know much about them. However, he knew that forbidden beings were very strong, but they were all searching for the path of reincarnation. This pair of invisible hands was pushing everything. Not only were they pushing Yi Xian forward, but they were also pushing everything in the chaos verse. Even the strongest of all eternity, and the forbidden beings were included. Who are you? Suddenly, Yi Xian threw his head back and roared. He looked around at the chaos verse, and his furious roar echoed through the chaos verse. The emotions that had been suppressed in Yi Xian's heart for so long suddenly erupted. Unfortunately, the chaos verse was very calm. It was so calm that not a single ripple could be seen. Nobody came to answer Yi Xian's question. No matter how much Yi Xian roared, there was no response at all. Yi Xian was venting his anger. After venting for a long time, he gradually calmed down. He silently glanced at the chaos verse, then turned and strode away. He did not want to become hysterical, nor did he want his violent emotions to affect him. This was because he believed that one day, he would uncover the entire truth. He would truly reach the apex and fear nothing. Northern region. Snow Bamboo Peak. Yi Xian stood alone at the peak of a mountain. He stared at the sea of clouds in front of him, his entire being abnormally calm. However, Yi Xian's calmness was far too terrifying. No one could sense any of his emotions at all. This caused Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen to reveal worried looks. They had no idea what had happened to Yi Xian during his battle. We should return. After a long while, Yi Xian waved his hand and looked at the two of them. Sir, when shall we leave? Fatso Huang asked cautiously. He had discovered that Yi Xian's situation was very strange. This was because Yi Xian's calm exterior hid something unimaginable. It was something that even Fatso Huang felt terrified of. Fatso Huang had traveled from the mortal realm to the chaos verse. It could be said that he understood Yi Xian the most. He had never seen Yi Xian so calm. It was so calm that he felt unfamiliar. He was like a raging volcano hidden within a glacier that would erupt at any moment and cause unimaginable destruction. I'll leave first. The two of you lead the northern region's celestial court to migrate. I'll meet up with you later, Yi Xian said calmly. Without waiting for their response, he took a step forward and disappeared. Sir, what happened? Gu Beichen frowned. He could sense that Yi Xian had changed. He had changed so much that he felt unfamiliar. Under Yi Xian's calm exterior, he was suppressing an emotion that even he and Fatso Huang felt terrified of. If Sir doesn't want to talk, let's not ask. I'm sure Sir has his own plans. All we need to do is help him eliminate some ants. Sir's path can only be walked by himself. Fatso Huang let out a long sigh. Sigh. Gu Beichen could only sigh helplessly. Chapter 1510. What was a homeland? In Yi Xian's heart, he no longer had a homeland, nor did he have a home. Once upon a time, the mortal realm had been his homeland, his home. But countless years had passed, and although the mortal realm still existed, the people had changed. Even if he returned, the mortal realm would no longer be the same as it had once been. The things and people he was familiar with would no longer be there. He walked the great Tao alone, with only a gentle breeze accompanying him. Yi Xian walked further and further away, and the concept of home and homeland had long since faded from his heart. Even the grand central territory beneath his feet was nothing more than a battlefield for him to conquer. Yi Xian walked step by step through the vast land, mountains, rivers, and even the boundless sea of trees. He was dressed in black and walked alone. Other than the billowing dust and smoke behind him, there was nothing else left behind. This was Yi Xian's life. He had walked alone for far too long, and only solitude accompanied him. Although the chaos verse was vast, he didn't know where his end was. Perhaps the door that the most powerful and forbidden figures of all time wanted to push open was the end of his journey. Sometimes Yi Xian felt lost. He had fought for so many years and slaughtered his entire life. What was it all for? To resurrect his old friends? To reach the apex of the chaos verse? Yi Xian had many answers to this question. But in the end, Yi Xian was certain that it was only a few simple words. Yi Xian had never been weaker than anyone in his entire life. These simple words were the true insights of Yi Xian's journey. He was a person who yearned for freedom, and even more so, he was a person who was unrestrained. However, the so-called freedom and restraint sounded simple, but how could it be so easy to obtain? Freedom and restraint had always been a part of a person's life. This had never changed, and all living things were part of it. Therefore, Yi Xian wanted to be free and unfettered. He wanted to be truly free and unfettered. He wanted to be the one to set the rules, to truly be supreme, to truly reign supreme in the universe. From the mortal world to the your wilds, all the way to the chaos verse, there were far, far too many people who had walked ahead of him. Not even the most powerful and taboo figures of all time would dare to claim that he was the most supreme of existences in the universe. That was why Yi Xian had to surpass them, and surpass the chaos verse itself. Perhaps when the time came, he'd be able to meet the mastermind behind all of this. 1 step moves heaven and earth, 2 steps moves the galaxy, 3 steps reverses the universe. Under the support of the power of time, Yi Xian slowly walked forward. However, with every step he took, his figure couldn't be seen at all. Only a ray of light flashed by. There were many great enemies he had to fight in the central domain, as well as his best friends. He wanted to meet his best friends before he decided to fight in the central domain. The central region was vast and boundless. Compared to the other 4 regions, they couldn't even compare to half of it. On the way to the heaven-mending sect, unless one used a great teleportation formation, it would take many years just by relying on one's own strength. Fortunately, Yi Xian's cultivation was comparable to that of a Tong Tian. After opening the first gate of heaven, his power of time and space had reached an unimaginable level. Even his space-time tree had grown into a towering tree. With the support of the power of time and space, Yi Xian's body was equivalent to a teleportation formation. Each time he teleported, he would travel an endless distance, allowing him to reach the heaven-mending sect at an extremely fast pace. This was because Yi Xian's best friend was in the heaven-mending sect. That was why the first thing Yi Xian did after returning to the central domain was to meet this friend. Qi, qi, qi. Streaks of light flowed through the world as the space trembled. Figures with terrifying auras, all headed towards the heaven-mending sect. From time to time, various jade carriages could be seen flying through the sky. The figures seated within even gave off terrifying auras. Demonic sounds wreaked havoc, divine sounds lingered, and golden light crossed the sky. There were also wild laughs that rang through the world. All sorts of people hurried towards the heaven-mending sect. These people all possessed extremely high cultivations, ranging from the 3rd realm of the Tao seeking to the immortal realm. There were over 100 of them. Yi Xian strolled along a dirt path towards the heaven-mending sect. Up ahead, the heaven-mending sect towered in the clouds. Yi Xian could see its scale just by raising his head. However, the sight of these people heading towards the heaven-mending sect naturally entered his eyes as well. When did the heaven-mending sect become so lively? Yi Xian said softly. This was because he could sense that these people's auras were all very powerful. They should be the disciples of a few great sects. Or perhaps they were the so-called most powerful seeds. However, the so-called powerful ones were only in the younger generation. In Yi Xian's eyes, these people were nothing more than clay chickens and pottery dogs. They were not enough for him to kill at all. Even the most powerful ones were only at the immortal realm, who had opened the first gate of heaven. These people's auras were indeed terrifying. They were much more powerful than green ghost Taoist. They clearly had some terrifying battle constitutions, and could not be compared to ordinary immortal realm experts. However, in Yi Xian's eyes, they were no different. Killing these so-called holy sons and divine sons of great sects like them was as easy as taking something out of his pocket for Yi Xian. Of course, Yi Xian had always believed that he was not a bloodthirsty person. The so-called killing was only a method to him. He had no interest in these people at all. After all, he came to the heaven-mending sect to see his best friend. That was all. Hey, are you also here to challenge the white-robed divine son? Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice came from above Yi Xian's head. A young girl landed beside Yi Xian. This girl wore a green silk dress. Her skin was fair, giving people the feeling of a pretty girl from a humble family. Her appearance could also be said to be excellent. She was indeed a rare little beauty. Yi Xian stopped and raised his head to look at the green-clothed girl. His brows twitched slightly as he asked curiously, "You mean to say that these trash want to challenge Lu Bai?" Trash? The green-clothed girl stared blankly at Yi Xian. Then she quickly covered her small mouth. Her small face became extremely strange. Even the gaze she used to look at Yi Xian was filled with astonishment. The green-clothed girl's name was Yun Xiaoyao. She had just reached the Dao Querying realm. She followed her sister, Yun Muxia, to the heaven-mending sect to challenge the white-robed divine sun. Along the way, she had seen many powerful people. They were all figures like the holy sons and holy daughters of various great sections. The two sisters naturally had extraordinary backgrounds. They were both from the Onion sect. Yun Muxia was also the current holy daughter of the Onion sect. Her aptitude was extremely high, and she had just reached the immortal realm. Yun Xiaoyao was still a young girl. When she discovered that only Yi Xian was walking on the dirt path on the way to the heaven-mending sect, she immediately became curious. She ignored her sister's advice and flew over to talk to Yi Xian. However, Yun Xiaoyao had never thought that the black-clothed young man before her would actually call the holy sons of the great sects trash. How could she not be shocked by such arrogant words? Chapter 15:11. Hey, don't spout nonsense. You'll get yourself killed. Yun Xiaoyao hurriedly made a shushing gesture, afraid that Yi Xian would continue spouting nonsense. If Yi Xian were to be heard by any of the saints, he would be in deep trouble. Yi Xian smiled knowingly as he looked at the young girl's cautious appearance. He stepped forward and rubbed the young girl's hair as he said, "Little girl, you're quite kind-hearted. The outside world is very cruel. You should return to your own orthodoxy and cultivate properly. The outside world is not suitable for you." Yi Xian's sudden action startled the girl. Ever since she started cultivating, no one had shown her such an intimate action. Yi Xian's action of stroking her hair was no longer intimate. It could be said to be impudent. However, Yun Xiaoyao was obviously shocked by Yi Xian's action. She had never experienced such a thing before. She was in a daze as she allowed Yi Xian to stroke her hair. Her face was flushed red, and she had yet to recover from her shock. "Impudent! How dare you profane my little sister?" Chi! Suddenly, a terrifying ray of sword light shot through the sky, accompanied by an angry shout. Clang! Yi Xian frowned, and flicked his finger to shatter the sword light. A girl in white appeared before him, glaring at Yi Xian angrily. Yi Xian was slightly taken aback. Then, he realized that his action was indeed a little rude. This girl was not related to him at all. His actions could easily cause misunderstandings. However, Yi Xian was a very casual person. Although he was dark and paranoid, he did not have any thoughts about Yun Xiaoyao. It was just that he felt that this girl was kind-hearted. So he used the identity of an elder to warn her. Yun Xiaoyao had already woken up from her stupor. Yun Xiaoyao had already woken up from her daze, and her little face was extremely red. She hurriedly hid behind Yun Muxia, and even stuck out half of her head to size up Yi Xian. However, when her gaze met with Yi Xian's, she was so frightened that she immediately shrank back behind Yun Muxia. "What audacity! How dare you profane my little sister? Who are you? Tell me your name." Boom! Her sword radiance filled the sky, and her killing intent was unfathomable. Although Yun Muxia had just entered the immortal realm, the fact that she was immortal proved that she was not an ordinary person. Her cultivation was terrifyingly strong. When she unleashed her killing intent on Yi Xian, it instantly attracted a large crowd. Chi! This scene immediately attracted the attention of many people who were hurrying towards the heaven-mending sect. There were even a few extremely terrifying auras that hurried over. This also made Yi Xian frown slightly, because he did not want to attract too much attention. He only wanted to see an old friend. Just now it was a misunderstanding. I was a little rude. Although Yi Xian was an unreasonable person, and he had always believed that whoever had the bigger fist was the reason, he was indeed in the wrong in this matter. This made him cup his hands slightly to express his apology. Misunderstanding? Yin Wuxia could be considered a peerless beauty. Her white clothes made her look even more cold and noble. At this moment, her face was frosty as she said, "Don't you know that men and women should not touch each other? Or do you think that the people of my onion sect are easy to bully?" Looking at Yin Wuxia's domineering attitude, Yi Xian frowned slightly. With a single glance, he could tell that this white-clothed woman was a narcissistic and extremely virtuous woman. Usually, it was this kind of woman that he hated the most. This kind of woman's sense of superiority was very simple. She believed that her beauty was unparalleled, and she had the backing of a great sect. Moreover, her cultivation was not ordinary. That was why she had developed such a narcissistic temperament. It was as if all men would circle around her whenever they saw her, and they would even kneel and lick her feet. Yi Xian did not want to get entangled with this kind of woman, because he had no interest in doing so. If he had not been a little rude to this little girl earlier, Yi Xian would have slapped her to death with a single slap. How could he allow her to talk nonsense with him? "I have already said that it was a misunderstanding. I hope you will not continue to pester me. Consider this pill as compensation for this little girl." Qi. After Yi Xian finished speaking, he casually shot out a ray of light towards Yun Xiaoyao. This also shocked Yin Wuxia. She thought that Yi Xian was going to kill her sister, so she tried to stop him with her sword. However, Yi Xian's cultivation was terrifying. How could Yin Wuxia stop him? Primary spirit pill? In the next moment, the pill landed in Yun Xiaoyao's hand. Yun Xiaoyao exclaimed in surprise. Yin Wuxia hurriedly checked if the little girl was injured. Only then did she realize that there was indeed an additional pill in her little sister's hand. Primary spirit pill? Yin Wuxia was secretly surprised. It was not that the primary spirit pill was precious, but it was extremely complicated to concoct this kind of pill. It required one to be at the second stage of the immortal realm to concoct it. However, this kind of pill was only suitable for people at the third stage of the Tao querying realm. As a second stage immortal realm expert, how could he concoct the primary spirit pill that was required by the third stage of the Tao querying realm? In the Onion sect, only their master, Sect Master Onion, could concoct it. He had once concocted a cauldron of it for Yin Wuxia and Yin Wuxia. This was also the reason why Yin Wuxia could step into the immortal realm so quickly. At this moment, Yi Xian took out a primary spirit pill and gave it to Yun Xiaoyao. In Yin Wuxia's eyes, this was indeed a generous gesture, because Yun Xiaoyao indeed needed the help of the primary spirit pill. In fact, this primary spirit pill was concocted by Yi Xian for Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen. He hoped that the two of them could use it when they entered the third stage of the Tao querying realm. He had a few left when he came to the Grand Central region. To Yi Xian, this kind of pill was no different from a pebble on the side of the road. However, in Yin Wuxia's eyes, Yi Xian casually gave away the primary spirit pill. This kind of generosity made her think that Yi Xian must be someone from a top-notch sect. Otherwise, he would not have taken out the primary spirit pill. While Yin Wuxia was astonished, Yi Xian had already turned and left. He did not want to be entangled with the two sisters. After all, he had only come to the heaven-mending sect to reunite with old friends. Rumble. Suddenly, without waiting for Yi Xian to take 3 steps, a few terrifying auras pressed down on him. 3 figures suddenly appeared in the void and blocked Yi Xian's path. Daoist Wuxia, did this person offend you? A red-clothed man with an extremely evil charm appeared. His eyes were filled with evil qi. He glanced at Yi Xian indifferently before looking at Yin Wuxia and Gu Beichen with a smile. Which orthodoxy are you from? Why haven't we seen you before? A green-clothed man said arrogantly. Rays of sword light circled around his body. He was obviously at the early stage of the immortal realm. Obviously, he was also a saint's son of some great orthodoxy. Little sister Yin, if there's anything, big sister will help you. An enchanting woman in a pink dress stroked her hair coquettishly. Although her appearance was not bad, her eyes were extremely evil. It was obvious that she cultivated the acacia technique. Countless men had been killed by her. These 3 people were all at the immortal realm. However, they had not even opened the first gate of heaven. However, including Yun Muxue. There were a total of 4 Immortal Realm experts present. It was indeed a shocking scene. After all, sempiternal realm experts were not common in the central domain. Those who could reach this realm were either saints or saintesses of the major sections. Wherever they went, they would be treated as VIPs of the major sections. Chapter 15:12. At this moment, Yun Muxue's eyes were filled with hesitation. She didn't know if she should let Yixian leave or not. This spirit yuan pill was indeed precious. But if she forgave Yixian for blaspheming her sister because of a single pill, wouldn't she be looked down upon by outsiders? Wouldn't they say that their calm cloud sex people could be impudent just because of a single spirit yuan pill? Thinking of this, Yun Muxue made a decision in her heart. She looked at Yixian and said, "Men and women shouldn't touch each other. My friend's actions were too rude. If I let you go, it would seem as if the onion cult is weak and easy to bully." Yun Muxue paused for a moment before changing her tone. "However, since you didn't do it on purpose, I will let this matter go as long as you apologize to my little sister personally." Yun Muxue felt that she wouldn't lose face for the onion cult by handling this matter this way. She would also give Yixian a way out. After all, she had accepted his spirit yuan pill. There was no need to make things difficult for Yixian over such a small matter. Unfortunately, Yun Muxue didn't expect that the person she was facing wasn't an ordinary person. Apologies were practically non-existent in Yixian's dictionary. The reason why he took out a spirit yuan pill to give to the little girl was because he was indeed a little rude just now. It could be considered a small compensation for the little girl. It was like an elder giving a candy to a child. There was no other reason for it. However, in Yun Muxue's eyes, Yixian had taken out a spirit yuan pill as a sign of weakness. She also believed that Yixian wouldn't dare offend the onion cult, and was afraid that these people would attack him. "Do I really have to kill these good-for-nothings?" Yixian frowned slightly as he spoke inexplicably. He really didn't want to kill anyone. After all, he had reunited with Liu Bai. It would be too vicious to kill a few people. Wouldn't it be better to be a little more peaceful? Although Yixian's voice was soft, it still entered the ears of these people. This also startled Yun Muxue and the others. They didn't know what Yixian was talking about. They also didn't expect that the good-for-nothings Yixian was talking about were them. "Apologize quickly, or you can stay here." The red-robed man laughed coldly as streams of blood energy seeped out. Clearly, he was trying to curry favor with Yun Muxue. "Brat, I can see that your cultivation base is not obvious. Clearly, you have used some sort of secret technique to hide your cultivation base. But no matter who you are, I advise you to know your place. Otherwise, when I make my move, it will be too late for you to cry." The green-robed man's sword light hummed as a terrifying power was released. "Little brother, you look really handsome like this. Why don't you beg Big Sister, and Big Sister can plead for you? I'm sure little sister Yun will give Big Sister this face." The woman in the pink silk dress laughed evilly, and from time to time, she winked at Yixian, showing an indecent attitude. "Fellow Taoist, are you looking down on my calm cloud sect?" Yun Muxue's expression was slightly cold. She had already given Yixian a way out, and all she wanted was for him to apologize. However, Yixian still hadn't done anything, and that made her unhappy. This was really troublesome. It seemed like he could only kill these pieces of trash. How boring. Yixian sighed in his heart and shook his head helplessly. It seemed like he could only kill these noisy flies. However, killing these pieces of trash did make Yixian feel that it was beneath his dignity. Wang. Yixian's eyes turned slightly, and his law eye of destruction was about to open. A heart-palpitating aura suddenly grew in the sky. This sudden aura startled Yun Muxue and the others, and their hearts trembled slightly. They didn't know what had happened, and why their hearts were suddenly palpitating. Just as the few of them were trying to find the source of the palpitating aura, a weak voice quietly rang out. It was this voice that had coincidentally saved Yun Muxue and the others' lives. "Big brother, thank you for your Yuan Ling elixir. However, I can't accept such a precious item." Yun Xiaoyao ran out from behind Yun Muxue and quickly came in front of Yixian. She held Yi Xian's palm and carefully placed the elixir in Yi Xian's hand. Only then did she turn around to look at Yun Muxue and the others. Big sister, this big brother didn't do it on purpose. I think he is a very nice person. Big brothers and big sisters, please don't make things difficult for this big brother. As Yun Xiaoyao spoke, she hurriedly turned around and winked at Yi Xian. She even pushed Yi Xian away. Yi Xian's Dharma eye of annihilation was fading away. He looked at the little girl in front of him, who was pushing him away in a hurry, and saw the so-called kindness in her eyes. A trace of a smile appeared on his face. Yi Xian casually placed the elixir in Yun Xiaoyao's hand and rubbed her hair again. He nodded slightly and turned around to walk away. Yi Xian's sudden action caused Yun Xiaoyao's little face to turn red. However, she didn't feel any anger in her heart, because she could feel that Yi Xian didn't have any ill intentions towards her. It was just an elder's praise for her. However, in the eyes of Yun Muxue and the others, Yi Xian's actions were too presumptuous. It was obvious that he didn't care about them. This caused Yun Muxue's face to turn even colder. She was about to leave Yi Xian behind to teach him a lesson. However, before they could do anything, Yun Xiaoyao hurriedly stood in front of them and said, "Big brothers and big sisters, please don't make things difficult for him. This big brother might just have a casual personality. He doesn't have any ill intentions towards me." "You little girl, you are too kind," Yun Muxue said helplessly. In the end, under her sister's persuasion, she didn't stop Yi Xian from leaving. Luckily, little Yun interceded for us. Otherwise, even if we didn't kill him today, we would have taught him a lesson. The man in green said coldly, "I see that this person's cultivation level is not bad. I originally wanted to take him into my harem. Looks like I have to give up on that today." The lady in the pink dress sighed. "For little Yun's sake, I won't lower myself to his level today. Otherwise, The man in red smiled evilly and looked at Yi Xian's back as he left with a mocking expression. Yi Xian had already walked far away. Naturally, he heard their conversation. This made him sigh in his heart. These pieces of trash really didn't know what was good for them. You should thank this little girl properly. Otherwise, you pieces of trash would be corpses by now. Yi Xian had already left, but his indifferent voice sounded in their ears. This caused the expressions of Yun Muxue and the others to change, especially the red-clothed man who erupted with terrifying killing intent and was about to chase after Yi Xian. "Don't." Yun Xiaoyao hurriedly pulled on the man in red and said, "Perhaps he really is crazy. Brother Shui, don't make things difficult for him. Alright, he's just a crazy person. Since little Yun has interceded for him, why should we lower ourselves to the same level as a crazy person?" The man in green continued, "That's right. We came to the heaven-mending sect this time to meet this white-robed Shensi. As long as we can force him to come out and fight with us, we will have the right to become the strongest seed." The lady in the pink dress said, "That's right. I heard that many people have already gone to challenge him. We are already one step too late. Right now we should hurry to the heaven-mending sect," Yun Muxue said coldly. Chapter 15:13. Little sister, keep the elixir well. We should be on our way. Yun Muxue reminded her, which made Yun Xiaoyao quickly agree. However, before they left, she looked at the direction Yi Xian went, and a trace of doubt rose in her eyes. This big brother. Why do I feel that he is very powerful? As if he is much more powerful than my sisters, Yun Xiaoyao muttered in her heart. She couldn't see through Yi Xian's cultivation, but she was a rare spiritual body. She was extremely sensitive to auras. She faintly felt that Yi Xian wasn't ordinary. Although he didn't release any aura, he gave her a very powerful feeling. However, Yun Xiaoyao didn't dare to confirm how powerful he was. However, she could feel that Yi Xian shouldn't be any weaker than her sister. He should also be a powerful early-stage immortal realm expert. Walking on the mountain, Yi Xian was walking alone. The incident that happened just now didn't affect his state of mind. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have wasted any time and directly killed Yun Muxue and the others. However, after experiencing the opening of the first heavenly gate, he had fallen into a mysterious and unpredictable state. His state of mind had also changed, and he knew that his future path would be too difficult. His true enemies were only the most powerful and taboo characters throughout history, and even the mastermind behind the scenes. As for those few people just now, they were just ants on the road. If a few ants could affect his state of mind, then Yi Xian's cultivation today was like a dog's body. However, that little girl just now had indeed made Yi Xian lose his killing intent. It wasn't that Yi Xian was merciful, but he saw something called kindness in the little girl's eyes. Kindness, it was a word that Yi Xian was extremely unfamiliar with. When he was young, he didn't use the word kindness, because he knew that kindness would only make him a weakling. Vicious, cruel, insidious, ruthless, all kinds of negative words were synonymous with Yi Xian. The so-called kindness had nothing to do with him. In Yi Xian's eyes, it was a joke. However, Yi Xian knew that there were always some people in this world who were naturally kind. Yi Xian was most touched by Gu Xiaoxiao from the human world, who was also Gu Beichen's elder sister. This kindness had once touched Yi Xian, and made him realize that the world wasn't just cruel. There were always people who had a bright heart, and a side that he didn't have. And this side was the so-called kindness. Perhaps Yi Xian just wanted to keep some of these people. Or perhaps he saw Gu Xiaoxiao in this little girl. There was no need for him to care about a few noisy ants. The mountain path was difficult to traverse. It led straight to the heavens, and above the heavens was where the heaven-mending sect was located. The continuous cloud palaces and jade palaces floated between the heaven and earth. Rays of spiritual light drifted between the heaven and earth, and the spirit energy that filled the heaven and earth rippled like water. The heaven-mending sect, as a top sect in the central region, was indeed extraordinary. Yi Xian walked up the mountain path. He didn't walk very fast because so many years had passed, and he hadn't seen Lu Bai for a long time. Along the way, he was also reminiscing about the little things that happened between him and Lu Bai. As for the people who wanted to challenge Lu Bai, Yi Xian felt that they were just a joke. Although Yi Xian didn't know what Lu Bai's current cultivation was, he was sure of one thing. With Lu Bai's unparalleled aptitude, his cultivation would definitely surpass his own. Perhaps he had already opened the fourth heavenly gate and reached the second stage of the immortal realm. Finally, Yi Xian reached the peak of the mountain. He looked up and saw the boundless heaven-mending sect in the sky. At this moment he no longer hesitated. He took a step forward and soared into the sky. Heaven-mending sect. The 999 steps of the stairway were all made of white jade crystals. At the end of the stairway was a heavenly gate. One could enter the heaven-mending sect through this heavenly gate. Call the white-robed Shensi to come out and accept the challenge. What? The white-robed Shensi has an earth-shattering cultivation and is known as the strongest seed. Is he going to avoid the challenge like this? What white-robed Shensi? My blood-robed Shensi wants to experience it. Can the so-called white-robed Shensi defeat my 3-foot-long sword? In front of the heavenly gate, there were over 100 young men with terrifying auras standing there. All kinds of arrogant voices could be heard. Among them, the weakest cultivation was at the Tao querying realm. Clearly, these people were disciples of various orthodoxies. At this moment, the people who challenged were the red-robed man and the green-robed man from before. One of them was the Shensi of the blood-robed Shensi, while the other was the Shensi of the heavenly sword divine sect. Both of them were at the early stage of the immortal realm. Their auras were indeed extraordinary. Everyone, my sect's Shensi has been in seclusion for many years. He will not accept anyone's challenge. Everyone please return. In front of the heavenly gate, 2 immortal realm elders stopped them. Facing the Shensi and Shensi of various orthodoxies, they also frowned. These people all represented their orthodoxies. If they attacked and forced them back, they would also offend the orthodoxies behind these Shensi. Although the heaven-mending sect was powerful, they did not want to make too many enemies. They could only let these 2 elders stop these people's clamoring. What a joke! We heard that a successor of a supreme orthodoxy came to challenge the white-robed Shensi. Although he was defeated in the end, it also means that the white-robed Shensi will accept anyone's challenge. Could it be that your heaven-mending sect is looking down on us, just because we are not successors of supreme orthodoxies? Someone loudly berated. That's right. We know that our cultivation is not as good as the white-robed shensis, but as a member of the younger generation, we also want to learn from the white-robed shensi. Could it be that your heaven-mending sect is so arrogant that you won't even exchange pointers? Another person added fuel to the fire. Obviously, these people were not really here to challenge Lu Bai. They were all here to fight with Lu Bai. After leaving, they could announce to the outside world that they had fought with Lu Bai to their heart's content. Although they lost in the end, it would still make them famous. Lu Bai was simply too famous. Lu Bai had never been defeated before, and he was considered as one of the 5 strongest people in the Grand Central Territory. He was said to be the most powerful person to compete for the title of strongest of all ages in the next Yuanhui. Moreover, for those who fought with Lu Bai had never killed them. He had always let them leave safely. This was also the reason why many people of the younger generation challenged him. Otherwise, why would these so-called young geniuses not dare to go to places like the Undying Heaven Palace and Heaven-Devouring Demonic Palace? It was because they were afraid of death. Facing the other supreme seeds, they would only end up dead. How would they dare to joke with their lives? They still had this much self-awareness. At this moment, Yi Xian had already reached the end of the stairway to heaven and witnessed this scene. This made him frown slightly. It seemed that Brother Bai was really annoyed these past few years. To think that there would be so many ants coming to make a ruckus. Without any ripples, Yi Xian strolled forward indifferently. He directly ignored these trash and walked towards the Great Heaven Gate. Please inform Lu Bai that an old friend has come to visit. Yi Xian quietly appeared in front of the Great Heaven Gate. His eyes were calm as he looked at the 2 great elders. His voice was calm. Big brother? Yi Xian's appearance immediately made Yun Xiaorao exclaim. She did not expect Yi Xian to appear here. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not respond to Yun Xiaoyao's call at all. A passerby was just a passerby. This time, he was only here to reunite with Lu Bai. He was not interested in other people's things. Seeing that Yi Xian did not respond at all, Yun Xiaoyao's eyes dimmed. She looked a little wronged. It's you? Yin Muxua was also startled. She did not expect Yi Xian to appear here. After all, in her eyes, Yi Xian was a little mysterious. Moreover, he seemed to be mentally abnormal. Brat, you are still far from being able to challenge the white-robed shensi. Go to the back and line up. There is no place for you to speak here. The red-robed man berated. He just wanted to teach Yi Xian a lesson, but he did not expect Yi Xian to also come here. Brat, you want to challenge the white-robed shensi? The green-robed man sneered. In his eyes, Yi Xian was a coward. Otherwise, he would not have taken out the primary spirit elixir for Yun Xiaoyao and left in a hurry. Wasn't it because he was afraid that these people would take his life? Get out of the way. You want to challenge the white-robed shensi? Who are you? Get out of the way. Don't hinder us from challenging the white-robed shensi. All kinds of berating voices were heard. All kinds of insults and disdainful remarks were born. Suddenly it was extremely noisy. Little friend, please leave. Our shensi will not accept anyone's challenge. The 2 elders also frowned and began to advise Yi Xian. They also treated Yi Xian as someone who came to challenge Lu Bai. Don't the 2 of you understand what I said? Go and inform Lu Bai that an old friend has come to visit. A trace of killing intent flashed across Yi Xian's eyes towards these noisy ants. Although he disdained these trash, if they disturbed him, then he could only get rid of these trash. What made Yi Xian speechless was that these 2 elders were like idiots. His words were very clear, but they still thought that he was here to challenge Lu Bai. Brat, get out of the way. Without waiting for the 2 elders to respond, the red-robed man was already impatient. He directly attacked Yi Xian. That terrifying immortal divine might erupted. If this attack landed, even if it did not kill Yi Xian, it would at least severely injure him. Be careful. Yun Xiaoyao's little face was pale. She hurriedly warned Yi Xian. You trash are really courting death. Yi Xian's patience was finally worn down, and his voice became ice-cold. He suddenly turned around, and his Dharma eye of annihilation rotated with a loud bang. An extremely strange thing also happened. Wang. The red-robed man's entire body froze in midair. It was as if the space he was in had stopped. His face was filled with fear and disbelief. Peng. One attack, just one attack. No one clearly saw how Yixian attacked. They only saw the red-clothed man's entire body explode in the air, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky as it rained down. Trash. Yixian muttered in a low voice, as if he'd done something very casual. However, the entire world had become deathly silent, and there were no longer any signs of life. Chapter 15-14. Silence, silence, a deathly silence. This deathly silence lasted for more than 10 breaths of time. Only when a rain of blood fell from the sky onto the bodies of these young geniuses was the deathly silence broken. Ah! An ear-piercing scream came from someone's mouth. This scream pierced through the clouds and was filled with extreme fear. In the next moment, over 100 young geniuses retreated in horror, maintaining a distance of more than 10 feet from Yixian. Hiss! The sound of people sucking in cold breaths could be heard continuously. A feeling called panic spread rapidly. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear, and all their gazes were focused on Yixian. Big brother, it's him? Yin Xiaoyao bit her lips tightly as she looked at Yixian. Her words were intermittent, because the bloody scene just now had shocked her to the core. This was because in the little girl's heart, Yixian was just a very ordinary person. Just now, he had been oppressed by her sister and the others. She had even stopped her sister and the others from making things difficult for Yixian. However, Yixian's sudden change made Yin Xiaoyao so scared that she couldn't speak. She couldn't believe that Yixian's cultivation was actually so terrifying. No, it wasn't just fear. Yin Xiaoyao felt as if she was in a dream. She couldn't imagine how terrifying Yixian's cultivation was. He had actually taken the life of the red-robed man in a single breath. One had to know that the red-robed man was a holy son of a sect. Although he wasn't an ultimate seed, he was definitely a top figure. However, such a powerful person had been smashed into smithereens by Yixian in a single breath. This was something that Yin Xiaoyao didn't dare to imagine. She couldn't believe it. However, even if she didn't believe it, she could only believe it. This was because she had personally seen the red-robed man die tragically in front of Yixian. At this moment, not only Yin Xiaoyao, but even her sister, Yin Muxue, had her mouth wide open in shock as she stared at Yixian in shock. Her lips were trembling slightly, as she could not believe what was happening. As for the green-clothed man and the pink-dressed woman, their faces were deathly pale, and their teeth were chattering. When they recalled the scene they had just met with Yixian, they felt a chill run down their spines. It was as if they had fallen into a glacier. Go inform Lu Bai that an old friend has come to visit. In front of the heavenly gate, Yixian spoke indifferently. The group of trash behind him could not attract his attention at all. The two heaven-mending sect elders suddenly awoke from their stupor. They sized up Yixian with faces full of fear. They were not these young heavenly geniuses. They had lived for an extremely long time. Just from the way Yixian killed the red-clothed man, they knew that Yixian was definitely one of the most powerful seeded contestants. It was even more likely that he was one of those heaven-defying monsters. Okay, I'll go now. One of the elders didn't dare to be negligent, and hurriedly turned into a ray of light, and entered the heaven-mending sect. Not to mention how terrifying Yixian's cultivation was. Just based on Yixian's cultivation alone, the orthodoxy behind him was undoubtedly a supreme orthodoxy. It was extremely likely that he was the successor of the three supreme orthodoxies of primal chaos, destiny and time. The heaven-mending sect could not afford to offend one of the three supreme orthodoxies. If Yixian was truly someone from one of the three supreme orthodoxies, this matter had to be reported to the heaven-mending sect master as soon as possible. They also had to ask Lu Bai to deal with this matter. As the elder went to report, the other elder had an apologetic smile on his face as he asked Yixian about his origins. However, he lowered his posture to an extremely low level, completely bowing and groveling to Yixian. Unfortunately, Yixian did not pay attention to this person at all. He only stood with his hands behind his back and calmly waited because he did not have a good impression of the heaven-mending sect. He only came here for Lu Bai, so how could there be anyone else in his eyes? Yi Xian did not speak or move, even though he did not reveal the slightest bit of aura. The more he acted like this, the more this elder became respectful. He did not dare to ask Yi Xian any more questions. However, these young prodigies all stared at Yi Xian's back with a frightened expression. No one dared to make a sound. Even their own breathing became cautious. However, there was an old adage that said that one would rather die to save face than suffer. Even though everyone present was scared to death, the azure-robed man felt that he was too much of a member of a great sect. If he left just like that, it would seem like he was too afraid of Yi Xian. As such, he wanted to save some face before leaving. I am the holy son of the Divine Sword sect, Lu Xuanfeng. Today, I would like to exchange pointers with the white-robed Shindi. However, seeing that your cultivation is at the Tongtian level, only you can match up to the white-robed Shindi. Once I break through in the future, I will definitely ask for your guidance. The azure-robed man clasped his hands and bowed. His tone was neither haughty nor humble, fully displaying the bearing of a holy son of a great sect. Even though he admitted that he was not Yi Xian's opponent, his words still gave him some face and gave him a way out. Farewell. The azure-robed man did not stay any longer. He turned around and was about to turn into a streak of light and leave. Unfortunately, it would have been better if he had not said anything. Once he said those pompous words, he was destined to die because Yi Xian did not buy it. Do you have the right to ask for my guidance? Boom. The heavens and earth trembled as Yi Xian's 5 fingers covered the sky. Yi Xian's 5 fingers rumbled as they pressed out, causing the space in the area to explode. Facing Yi Xian's attack, the azure-clothed man was unable to dodge at all. His face was filled with fear, and he didn't even have time to scream before he was directly smashed into the air by Yi Xian. Trash always talks too much, Yi Xian said indifferently. This? So terrifying. Show. Yi Xian killed another person. Immediately, these young sky prides were so shocked that they started to speak in fear. However, someone immediately made a shushing gesture, instantly silencing these young sky prides. Many of them even hurriedly covered their mouths, afraid that they would say something wrong and provoke Yi Xian to kill them on the spot. Killing people without saying anything had always been Yi Xian's style. The reason was simple. In Yi Xian's eyes, these trash were just some flies. It was as if there were flies buzzing around his ears. Yi Xian was just casually swatting a few flies to death. It was a very casual thing. What was the meaning of a ferocious aura? What was the meaning of a ferocious aura? At this moment, Yi Xian fully explained the meaning of these 2 phrases. In the eyes of these young sky prides, Yi Xian was a peerless ferocious person. So ferocious that it caused them to tremble in fear. So fierce that it caused them to feel fear. Right now, they were only able to stand firm with their own willpower. No one dared to move, and no one dared to leave. Everyone was extremely regretful. Why did they choose to challenge the white-robed Shensi at this time? Why did they have to meet such a terrifying person here? The hundreds of sky prides were all having mixed feelings. They all wanted to leave this place, but they did not dare to act rashly. This feeling of fear continued to spread. Some of the more mentally weak ones even broke out in cold sweat, drenching their clothes. Dao brother, I'm from Acacia sect. The woman in the pink dress was pale. However, she still took a small step forward and bowed towards Yi Xian. She wanted to lower her head and apologize to Yi Xian. Chapter 15:15. However, before she could finish, Yi Xian said calmly, "Did I give you permission to speak?" Bang! The void exploded and shattered. Yi Xian slapped out, directly smashing the woman into pieces. A large amount of blood poured onto the ground. She was already dead to the point where she couldn't be any more dead. Woo-woo. This woman's death finally scared some of the female cultivators out of their wits. More than a dozen of them collapsed to the ground in fear. Some of them were so weak that puddles of water flowed out from their bodies. A strange smell wafted out. Chi. With a flick of his finger, he could destroy the sky and kill all living things. Yi Xian's face was full of disgust. When he flicked his finger, beams of terrifying sword light shot out. Dozens of female cultivators were directly sliced into pieces. They all died tragically on the spot. It was such a tragic scene that one couldn't bear to look at it. Yi Xian's methods were cruel and sinister. These young prodigies were scared out of their wits. However, they covered their mouths tightly and didn't dare to make a sound. This was because anyone who made a sound or moved strangely had all died tragically before Yi Xian's eyes. They didn't even have the strength to resist. I like silence. I don't like to hear some noise. Do you understand? Yi Xian calmly gazed at the dozens of young geniuses. Although his voice was calm, it was as terrifying as the sound of a dead soul in their ears. We understand. Some of the smarter ones hurriedly bowed and answered. Most of them were so scared that they didn't dare to answer. Boom! Yi Xian's sword was like the sky, ready to destroy heaven and earth. With a wave of his hand, a heavenly sword appeared and slashed towards those who didn't answer. In the next moment, corpses littered the ground. Dozens of young prodigies were cut in half at the waist. A large amount of blood splattered on the ground. The two halves of the corpses were even more shocking. Cruel, perverted, and even temperamental. Yi Xian's methods were simply unfathomable. The remaining few prodigies were terrified. Some of them were so scared that their guts were broken. Green bile flowed out of their mouths. Plop! Finally, the holy son of an unknown sect directly knelt down and kowtowed towards Yi Xian like he was pounding garlic. Although he didn't say a single word, his forehead was bleeding profusely. It was as if there was a chain reaction. When one person knelt down and kowtowed, the others quickly reacted. They no longer cared about their dignity and only wanted to save their lives. They knelt down and kowtowed to Yi Xian. Did I ask you to kneel? Yi Xian frowned slightly. But as soon as he finished speaking, the people who were kneeling and kowtowing immediately looked up in shock. Because they had already experienced Yi Xian's cruel and unpredictable methods, their faces were filled with fear. No! Yun Xiaoyao wept and begged. But unfortunately for Yi Xian, this little girl's begging simply couldn't disturb his state of mind. Qi! Qi! The sword of slaughter soared across the sky, causing chaos in the heavens and the earth. Dozens of terrifying sword rays appeared in the void, all of them containing the power to bury the heavens. With a horrifying murderous intent, they headed towards the few remaining young heavens favorites. Puff! 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 Blood rained down like rain, and broken limbs accompanied by extremely terrified cries. Yi Xian was like a butcher. In just a few breaths of time, the remaining young heavens favorites were all slaughtered. The ground was littered with mutilated corpses. A bunch of trash. It's good that they're dead. It'll be quieter this way. Yi Xian looked indifferently at the blood-soaked ground. Towards the hundreds of young heavens favorites who had died tragically in his hands, there wasn't the slightest bit of emotion in his eyes. At this moment, only Yun Xiaoyao and her sister were left. Yun Mushua's face was pale to the extreme. She was so scared that her entire body went limp on the ground. She had never seen such a terrifying person. The hundreds of heaven's favorites who were fine just a moment ago had died in front of her in the blink of an eye. And all of them had died without a complete corpse. You demon! You killed them. The sect behind them will not let you go. Yun Mushua was so scared that she had lost her mind. She pointed at Yi Xian and screamed. Another idiot. Yi Xian said indifferently. He raised his 5 fingers, and an extremely terrifying power appeared in his palm. It was obvious that he was going to kill this girl on the spot in the next moment. Big brother, please don't kill my sister. I will apologize to you on her behalf. Yun Xiaoyao's face was pale as she stood in front of Yun Mushua. Her face was full of tears as she begged Yi Xian bitterly. She even knelt down and kowtowed to Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned slightly and shook his head. He casually dissipated the power in his palm. Then he looked at Yun Xiaoyao and said in a low voice, "Little girl, you have a kind heart. You are very similar to an old friend of mine. However, she has passed away long ago. The heavens are heartless and treat all living things like straw dogs. The earth is heartless and buries the souls of the dead in all ages. The humans are unjust and should kill the humans." Yi Xian was in a trance as Gu Xiaoxiao's figure flashed across his mind. It was as if he could see her smile and murmur some words. If you weren't so kind back then, why would I make things difficult for you? In the end, I let you pass away. There should be some kind people like you left in this world. Yi Xian sighed softly. You two can leave. Yi Xian waved his hand. This also made Yin Xiaoyao quickly help Yin Mushui up. Before leaving, she bit her lips and looked at Yi Xian. She wanted to say something, but she swallowed her words. Finally, with Yin Xiaoyao's help, the two sisters turned into rays of light and disappeared into the distance. Only the blood and corpses were left outside the heaven-mending sect. The elder's face was pale, and he didn't dare to move at all. At this moment, Yi Xian stood there calmly. He didn't feel the slightest bit of emotion towards the river of blood and corpses behind him. He had killed over 100 young geniuses. Although he felt that they were noisy, the main reason was that he wanted to get rid of these trash for Lu Bai. From Yi Xian's understanding of Lu Bai wasn't an indecisive and soft-hearted person. Clearly, the heaven-mending sect didn't want to make too many enemies, so Lu Bai didn't kill anyone who challenged him. However, Yi Xian didn't care about these taboos. Since these people dared to challenge Lu Bai, he would kill them all. This would also allow Lu Bai to have some peace, and not have to worry about these trash disturbing the reunion of the two brothers. Rumble. Just as Yi Xian was calmly waiting, he heard a rumbling sound from within the heaven-mending sect. A golden path spread out, and at the end of the path, 3 figures walked towards Yi Xian. May I know which supreme orthodoxy you are from, young friend? This voice was vast and boundless, and it was as heavy as a mountain. Although this voice didn't carry any power, it was enough to make one's soul tremble. Clearly, this person's cultivation was unfathomable. This voice was all too familiar to Yi Xian, because it belonged to Heaven-Mending Sect's sect master. However, Yi Xian was a bit puzzled. Why would Heaven-Mending Sect's sect master come out personally to welcome them? Logically speaking, Heaven-Mending Sect's sect master was a veteran Immortal Realm expert. Even if the godchild of a supreme orthodoxy came to visit, he wouldn't need to personally welcome them. Moreover, Yi Xian saw through his law eye of destruction that Lu Bai wasn't among the 3 people. There were only Heaven-Mending Sect's sect master and 2 Immortal Realm elders. This made him wonder why Lu Bai wasn't here. Chapter 15-16. The golden path was resplendent. Sect Master Butian walked over with a smile on his face. However, as he gradually approached Yi Xian, the smile on his face gradually stiffened. Then, it became astonishment, and even his footsteps came to a stop. Boom! An unimaginable power erupted from Sect Master Butian's body. This terrifying power was not under his control at all, and it instantly blew away the 2 elders beside him. This was proof of just how shaken his heart was. You. Even though Sect Master Butian had experienced many storms and could be said to be unfazed even if the sky collapsed, he was still horrified when he saw Yi Xian's appearance. This was clearly a dead person, so how could he appear before him alive? He didn't dare to believe it. He even felt like he was in a dream. Yi Xian's expression did not change at all after seeing Sect Master Butian's shocked appearance. He understood Sect Master Butian's feelings very well. Back then, he had clearly died in the battle between the strongest. However, he was still alive before Sect Master Butian. How could Sect Master Butian not be horrified? More than 10 million years had passed. This was a very long time. When Yi Xian saw Sect Master Butian again, he had no choice but to admit that Sect Master Butian was indeed terrifyingly powerful. Even though Yi Xian had also stepped into the Immortal Realm, when he saw Sect Master Butian again, Yi Xian could still feel that he wasn't Sect Master Butian's match. Just the aura that Sect Master Butian revealed was enough to suppress him to the point that he couldn't breathe. For levels of Immortal, the difference between heaven and earth. These simple words flashed through Yi Xian's mind. He was finally able to confirm one thing. The heaven-mending sect master was at the 3rd stage at the very least, and it was even more likely that he had opened 9 heaven gates. Law Eye of Destruction. In order to observe the cultivation of the heaven-mending sect master, Yi Xian's eyes rotated in a terrifying manner. He used the Dharma Eye of Annihilation that could see through the essence of the heaven-mending sect, hoping to see through the true cultivation of the heaven-mending sect. However, as the master of a sect, Sect Master Butian was naturally not someone an ordinary immortal in the northern region could compare to. When Yi Xian's Law Eye of Destruction landed on him, his body immediately erupted with a blinding light. Yi Xian's eyes stung, and he was unable to see through Sect Master Butian's cultivation at all. It was also at this moment that Sect Master Butian's thoughts turned. He finally recovered from his shock and stared fixedly at Yi Xian with an extremely complicated expression. He had always believed that Yi Xian was dead, but Lu Bai had always believed that Yi Xian was still alive. He had never believed Lu Bai's words, because none of the 10 paragons had survived. As for the legend of Yi Xian killing the Lord of the Extreme Devil, Sect Master Butian treated it as a joke. He thought that it was a battle between the other paragons, so Yi Xian was the scapegoat. After all, Yi Xian had been far too weak back then. How could he have killed a paragon? Wasn't this just a fantasy? Impudent! You dare to kill so many young prodigies in front of my heaven-mending sect. Suddenly, just as Yi Xian and sect leader Butian were looking at each other, the 2 elders that were sent flying by sect leader Butian's unstable aura leaped over. When they saw the corpses on the ground behind Yi Xian, they berated him with ashen expressions. The 2 elders believed that Sect Master Butian's unstable aura was definitely because he had seen those young prodigies die at Yi Xian's hands. So he lost control and leaked his aura. Stand down. Suddenly, before the 2 elders could do anything to Yi Xian, Sect Master Butian coldly shouted. The 2 elders were stunned and quickly retreated behind him. However, they looked at Yi Xian with a strange gaze. Did this person have some sort of extraordinary identity? Otherwise, why would the sect master scold the 2 of them? I truly never thought that you would still be alive in this world. Moreover, a mortal like you has actually reached the eternal realm. Sect Master Butian slowly walked towards Yi Xian with an extremely deep voice. I also didn't expect that after so many years, the cultivation of the dignified heaven-mending sect master hasn't improved in the slightest. Yi Xian calmly spoke. He didn't show any humility, because the heaven-mending sect master was stronger than him. Yi Xian had always known that sect master Butian looked down on him. At the same time, he did not have a good impression of sect master Butian. If it wasn't for Lu Bai, the 2 of them would never have crossed paths. However, after reaching the eternal realm and grasping the heavenly calamity transformation, Yi Xian was not sect master Butian's opponent, but it was impossible for him to make things difficult for him. Yi Xian even had a thought. He wanted to fight Sect Master Butian and see just how great the gap was between them. However, this thought only flashed through his mind. He did not come here to cause trouble for Sect Master Butian, but to see his best friend. Yi Xian did not want to argue with Sect Master Butian. You are still as bold as before. However, your cultivation has indeed made me look at you in a new light. Sect Master Butian did not become angry, because Yi Xian said that his cultivation had not improved at all. This was because Yi Xian was telling the truth. His cultivation path had reached its end, and it would be extremely difficult for him to improve any further. This was why he placed all of his hopes on Lu Bai. I'm here to see Brother Bai. I hope Sect Master Butian can accommodate me. Yi Xian did not want to interact too much with Sect Master Butian, so he directly stated his purpose for coming here. Lu Bai. Sect Master Butian's expression became complicated when Lu Bai was mentioned. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. He could only sigh with a bitter expression. Just how experienced was Yi Xian? How could he not see the change in Sect Master Butian's expression? This also startled him. A terrifying aura erupted from his body. The white jade ground beneath his feet trembled violently as web-like cracks spread in all directions. What happened to him? Yi Xian let out a low roar as the aura around his body instantly became tyrannical. His eyes were extremely sinister as he stared at Sect Master Butian. Very few people in this world were worthy of Yi Xian's attention, but Lu Bai was definitely number 1. Yi Xian's mind trembled after seeing the bitter expression on Sect Master Butian's face. He knew that something must have happened to Lu Bai, and it was definitely something big. Otherwise, Sect Master Butian would not reveal such a bitter expression. "Sai, come with me." Sect Master Butian sighed and called for Yi Xian to lead the way. Yi Xian's expression was gloomy. He didn't say a word as he followed behind Sect Master Butian. The two of them also disappeared into the heavenly gate, leaving behind a few elders to look at the corpses on the ground with bewildered expressions. They couldn't understand it at all. Yi Xian had killed so many geniuses from the great sects, yet Sect Master Butian didn't seem to care at all, nor did he have any intention of blaming him. This was simply unbelievable. After all, these great sects would definitely demand an explanation from the heaven-mending sect after such a big incident. However, Sect Master Butian's attitude towards Yi Xian made these elders unable to understand Yi Xian's background. Chapter 15-17. A heavenly palace was rooted in the clouds in the sky. Surging spirit energy permeated the heavenly palace, giving it a mysterious and majestic appearance. In front of the heavenly palace, Sect Master Butian and Yi Xian stood side by side. At this moment, Butian had a complicated expression. He let out a long sigh and said, "Lu Bai is inside this heavenly palace. Come with me." Rumble. Butian formed a seal with both hands. Rays of divine light shot out from his hands and intertwined into a mysterious formation. The palace gate rumbled as it opened. A faint light leaked out from within. Sect leader Butian walked through the air, while Yi Xian followed behind him with a gloomy expression. He wasn't afraid that sect leader Butian would harm him, even though the other party was much stronger than him. If he wanted to leave, sect leader Butian wouldn't be able to keep him. After the two of them entered the heavenly palace, the gate rumbled as it closed. The two of them also disappeared from the outside world. Darkness, pitch black as far as the eye could see. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. As Yi Xian and Butian entered the heavenly palace, the boundless darkness engulfed them. Only a speck of light appeared before Yi Xian's eyes. A blurry figure was lying within the light. "Brother Bai?" Yi Xian's eyes widened in shock. He ignored Butian and turned into a ray of light as he shot towards the depths of the heavenly palace. Whoosh! In just an instant, Yi Xian appeared in the depths of the heavenly palace and arrived in front of the dark light. The scene that entered his eyes caused Yi Xian's entire body to be in a tyrannical aura, and the terrifying heaven-burying divine light flowed around him in a terrifying manner. What did Yi Xian see? A black jade platform was emitting a dark light. Lu Bai's eyes were closed as he laid on top of it. His entire body seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. Even when Yi Xian arrived in front of him, Lu Bai didn't show any signs of waking up. Thump, thump, thump. Sect leader Butian walked over with heavy steps, causing Yi Xian to abruptly turn around. His expression was extremely ferocious, and his eyes had turned scarlet. He was like an ancient beast that was choosing to devour people. "It's you again, you old dog. I'm going to kill you." Yi Xian roared angrily, as if he had entered a state of madness. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying thing happened. Terrifying veins squirmed on Yi Xian's forehead like maggots. His face was distorted, and a mysterious symbol appeared on his forehead. At this moment, it was pulsing and flickering violently on his forehead, emitting an extremely terrifying aura. The void exploded and the laws of nature crumbled. Even the remaining spiritual energy in the world turned into a vacuum. The entire heavenly palace was horribly distorted. It was as if everything in the world had frozen at this moment, and was about to completely dissipate at this moment. Eternal Reincarnation Fist. Yi Xian was as terrifying as a demon that had crawled out from hell. He raised the Eternal Reincarnation Fist that he had just comprehended. The mysterious trajectory destroyed every inch of space. The mysterious symbol on his forehead shone even brighter and pulsed even faster. Boom! One fist for eternity, turning the primal chaos into nothingness. This fist could destroy the eternal reincarnation cycle. This fist could destroy the primal chaos of the world. This fist could make all things cease to exist. This fist could not be described with words. Facing this fist, all the hairs on Butian's body stood on end. He actually felt the threat of death. Stop. You misunderstand. Butian hastily roared. But Yi Xian had already unleashed this fist. He could only block it. Heaven-mending technique. Butian's heart palpitated in the face of Yi Xian's eternal reincarnation fist. He had never seen such a terrifying fist technique before. It actually made him feel like he was about to die. Wang. A sky-covering light barrier appeared in front of Butian. It even covered the entire heavenly palace. Yi Xian's eternal reincarnation fist finally landed on the light barrier. Gotcha. What happened next left sect master Butian horrified. His heaven-mending technique began to crack inch by inch. With a loud explosion, his heaven-mending technique actually shattered. Go! Sect leader Butian waved his sleeve and used a boundless divine ability to neutralize the eternal reincarnation fist. However, his divine ability seemed to have no effect on the eternal reincarnation fist. It directly passed through his divine ability and struck towards sect leader Butian. Bang! Butian was instantly sent flying. However, he stabilized his body in the next moment. He took a step forward and reappeared beside Yi Xian. However, his expression changed to one of extreme fear. He looked at Yi Xian with shock in his eyes. What kind of divine ability is this? Sect leader Butian asked in fear. Yi Xian's punch caused him to continuously use all sorts of great techniques to block it, but in the end, it still landed on his body. Although it didn't cause him any harm, his chest faintly hurt, and a trace of power that even he couldn't understand crazily destroyed his body. Fortunately, Butian was a peak sempiternal expert. He immediately used all his cultivation to force this strand of power out of his body, so he did not suffer any substantial damage. However, just by forcing out this strand of mysterious energy that was as thin as a strand of hair, it had consumed 20% of his cultivation. This caused sect leader Butian to be inexplicably shocked, and he was even more fearful of Yi Xian's eternal reincarnation fist. Butian was absolutely certain that if Yi Xian used this fist technique at the same cultivation level as him, he definitely would not be able to withstand it. Even if he did not die, he would be severely injured. Terrifying, too terrifying. This type of fist technique divine ability left heaven-mending sect master completely horrified. This is a divine ability that will take your life. Die. Yi Xian had already gone mad. He charged up the eternal reincarnation fist once more. His entire body began to sway. Although his face was hideous and terrifying, it was also as pale as a sheet of paper. This was because he could only use the eternal reincarnation fist twice at most. This was because the eternal reincarnation fist consumed far too much of his cultivation. Calm down. I didn't harm him. Butian immediately returned to his senses. He hurriedly tried to explain himself to Yi Xian. He even used the great locking technique to restrain Yi Xian, but Yi Xian instantly escaped from his technique. The Heaven Calamity's transformation made it impossible for Butian to lock onto Yi Xian's presence, let alone suppress him. Just what has happened to him? In the next moment, Yi Xian mysteriously appeared behind Butian. This caused Butian's expression to change once more. He never thought that not only had Yi Xian learnt such a terrifying fist technique, even his escape technique was terrifying. Even he could not capture Yi Xian's traces. Butian was secretly shocked, but he still managed to react quickly. He suppressed his shock and looked at Yi Xian. I didn't harm him. Calm down and listen to me slowly. After using the eternal reincarnation fist once, Yi Xian had consumed a lot of his cultivation as well, which also happened to wake him up. Yi Xian could sense Butian's helplessness. He knew that perhaps he had truly misunderstood. He also wanted to know what had happened to Lu Bai. Brother Bai, just what has happened? Yi Xian arrived before Lu Bai once more. He stared at the unconscious Lu Bai with a deep and terrifying gaze. After the battle of the strongest, the outside world said that you had died and Lu Bai had returned to the Butian sect. Butian sorted out his thoughts and began to tell Yi Xian about what had happened in the past 10 million years. Originally, after the battle of the strongest, Lu Bai had heard about Yi Xian's death, but he did not believe it. He even asked Butian to search for Yi Xian's traces, but there were no results. Since then, Lu Bai began to cultivate in seclusion. During this time, he had defeated all the challengers. Apart from accepting challenges from the outside world, Lu Bai cultivated in seclusion in the heavenly palace all day long. His cultivation speed was simply terrifying. During this time, Lu Bai would always have some strange things appear in his hands. These things were extremely terrifying. Even Butian did not know where they came from. It was as if they had appeared out of thin air in Lu Bai's hands. 10,000 years ago, Lu Bai suddenly told Butian that he felt that there was a problem with his body. He might fall into a deep sleep, and did not know when he would wake up. These strange words naturally shocked Butian. He repeatedly asked Lu Bai if there was a problem with his cultivation. However, Lu Bai only shook his head. This was because even he did not know what had happened. However, as his cultivation grew higher and higher, it was no longer under his control. He would occasionally fall asleep, and there were no signs of cultivation deviation. Lu Bai used his willpower to resist the urge to sleep, waiting for Yi Xian to appear. One day, he fell asleep again, but this time, he did not wake up. How could this be? After hearing Butian's story, Yi Xian stared at the sleeping Lu Bai in a daze. He became completely silent. Look, boom. As Sect Master Butian spoke, he gently waved his sleeve at Lu Bai. The space rumbled as gates of heaven appeared above Lu Bai. They were all gates of heaven opened by Lu Bai. 7 heavenly gates? A total of 7 heavenly gates appeared before Yi Xian. Yi Xian exclaimed in shock. He could not believe his eyes. 10,000 years ago, he opened the 6th heavenly gate. However, in the past 10,000 years, he unknowingly opened the 7th heavenly gate and officially entered the 3rd stage of the immortal realm. If I did not see it with my own eyes, even I would not believe it, Butian said with a complicated expression. Chapter 15:18. Buzz. The 7 gates hummed as they rotated. Mysterious rays of light flowed down from them and circled around Lu Bai's body. Lu Bai was in a deep sleep. His face was very peaceful, or perhaps it could be said that he was sleeping very soundly. It was as if he would sleep for a very long time, so long that he would never wake up. Yi Xian was silent. He stared at the sleeping Lu Bai in a daze. He did not make a sound from beginning to end. However, Yi Xian's silence was too terrifying. It gave off an extremely oppressive feeling. Even Sect Master Butian's mind trembled slightly. Is there any way to wake him up? After an incense stick's worth of time, Yi Xian finally withdrew his gaze from Lu Bai's body. He turned around and looked at Sect Master Butian. Sigh. Sect Master Butian let out a long sigh and said, I've already used all sorts of methods. I even gave him the last remaining bottle of heaven-mending liquid, but he still can't wake up. Yi Xian frowned after hearing Sect Master Butian's words. He said, Sect Master, your cultivation is at the Tongtian level. If even you can't wake him up, does that mean only the strongest of the ages can? The strongest of the ages? Sect Master Butian's expression changed. He then calmed down and looked at Yi Xian. We still don't know what's wrong with Lu Bai. The strongest of the ages might have a way to wake him up, but he has the chaotic spirit body. If the strongest of the ages knew about this, it might lead to a fatal disaster for him. Sect Master Butian paused for a moment before continuing. I know you have a deep relationship with the Space-Time Lord and the Extreme Love Lord, but these two are not the rulers of the 10th Eon. Only the Lord of all spirits is the ruler of the 10th Eon. He has fused with the chaotic heavenly heart and achieved Tao in this eon. Only he might be able to wake Lu Bai up. The Lord of all spirits? Yi Xian murmured. His eyes gradually became resolute. He had already made his decision. You're not really going to seek help from the Lord of all souls, are you? Even though heaven-mending sect master really wanted Lu Bai to wake up, the Lord of all spirits was the ruler of the 10th Eon. He was also carefully nurturing a disciple to compete for the position of the most powerful of all time in the next eon. Even if Yi Xian managed to invite the Lord of all spirits, Once the Lord of all Spirits found out that Lu Bai had a chaos spirit body, there would be a huge problem. This was because no one could tolerate the existence of the chaotic spirit body. The chaotic spirit body was destined to be the strongest throughout the ages. How could the Lord of all Spirits possibly tolerate Lu Bai? Looking at the sleeping Lu Bai, Yi Xian said with determination in his eyes, "No matter what price I have to pay, I must wake Brother Bai up. Otherwise he will be in big trouble." Unknowingly, Yi Xian had a feeling that Lu Bai's deep sleep was an extremely terrifying thing. This was because Lu Bai's aura started to feel unfamiliar to him, and the aura overflowing from the 7 great heavenly gates also caused Yi Xian's mind to tremble. This proved that Lu Bai was experiencing something terrifying. Yi Xian didn't know what exactly was going on, but he could feel that Lu Bai's slumber contained an extremely great hidden danger. If he wasn't woken up, perhaps he would be in a deep slumber forever. This was no different from death. Yi Xian had an extremely strong premonition that Lu Bai might wake up again. However, he didn't know when that day would come. Moreover, Yi Xian had a feeling that perhaps when Lu Bai woke up on his own, Lu Bai would no longer be Lu Bai. Perhaps he would become a different person. This feeling was extremely strong, causing Yi Xian's mind to become extremely heavy. In fact, Yi Xian had always had a huge question in his heart. Lu Bai's aptitude was too terrifying. Even the word unparalleled could not explain it. At first it was the Tao of formations. Then it was the strangeness of cultivation. Anything in Lu Bai's hands could be turned into something magical. No matter what cultivation method or formation, he could learn it in one go. First, it was the immortal defying formation in the human realm. Later, it was the Chaos 4 ultimate formation. Later, Lu Bai caught up and opened the 7 gates in a short period of time. Not to mention the Chaos Spirit Body. Even the Chaos Spirit Body couldn't be so terrifying. Yi Xian had a problem when he thought about it. In the human realm, Lu Bai was able to create the immortal defying formation that could even knock down an immortal's realm. At that time, Lu Bai was just a mortal. Yi Xian knew very well how big the gap between a mortal and an immortal was. Moreover, there was one thing that had always puzzled Yi Xian the most. When he revived Lu Bai, he used the power of time and space to travel back. Although he was obstructed by the power of destiny, he still managed to revive Lu Bai. As Yi Xian entered the chaotic universe and recalled the process of reviving Lu Bai, he realized that he was really too naive. Back then, he had just entered the great sage realm. How could it be so easy to revive a dead person? It was as if there was a hand in the unseen world that was pushing everything, making Yi Xian believe that he had revived Lu Bai. His hair stood on end, and his heart trembled. Yi Xian's expression was calm, but his heart was in a mess. Boom! Just as Yi Xian was lost in thought, he heard a loud explosion from the outside world, accompanied by a fierce voice. "Call Lu Bai out. This devil's son wants to see how capable this white-robed divine son of the heaven-mending sect is." These detestable juniors! The sect master was furious. Clearly, someone had come to challenge Lu Bai again. He had been annoyed to no end over the past few years, but the people who had come were all from various great orthodoxies. The sect master did not want to make too many enemies, so he could only have the sect's elders advise him. However, something seemed to be different this time. The explosions from the outside world grew louder and louder, accompanied by furious roars and miserable cries. Clearly a large-scale battle was taking place. "Sect Master." Suddenly, an anxious voice rang out from outside the Heaven Palace. Clearly, the person who had come was extremely powerful, and even the elders of the Heaven Mending sect were unable to stop him. He was currently outside the Heaven Palace, requesting to see the Sect Master. These juniors are simply too impudent. Sect Master Bution's expression was cold as he strode out of the Heavenly Palace. As for Yi Xian, he took a deep look at the sleeping Lu Bai. His expression gradually turned ice-cold, as his eyes rotated in a terrifying manner. "Brother Bai, I won't let anyone disturb your sleep. Let me, Yi Xian, clean up this trash for you. Sleep well. When I return, I will definitely wake you up." Yi Xian said gently. He took a deep look at the sleeping Lu Bai. then suddenly turned around and walked out of the Heaven Palace. In front of the Heaven-Mending Sect's Heaven Gate, a black-robed man stood proudly with his hands behind his back. He looked around with disdain. Several Immortal Realm elders surrounded him, but some of them were bleeding from the corners of their mouths. Clearly, they had suffered heavy injuries. I, Tianma Luo, have long heard of the white-robed Divine Sun's name. Today, I have come to your sect to ask for guidance. Could it be that the Heaven-Mending Sect does not give my heaven-devouring demonic palace face? The black-robed man said with disdain. Chapter 15:19. So you're the successor of the sky-devouring demonic palace. However, you've injured my elder. Do you think my sect is easy to bully? Rumble. Unparalleled heavenly might rolled out. Sect leader Bution's voice exploded between heaven and earth. That boundless and terrifying pressure instantly caused the black-clothed man's expression to change greatly. The black-robed man had only opened the second gate of heaven, but he was from the sky-devouring demonic palace, and he cultivated the sky-devouring demonic technique and the extremely rare spirit-devouring battle physique. Even an Immortal Realm expert, who had opened the third gate of heaven, was no match for him. Even if he encountered someone who had opened the fourth gate of heaven, he could still retreat safely. This was the foundation of the successor of a supreme orthodoxy. Not only was his cultivation base terrifying, but he also cultivated supreme techniques. His starting point was much higher than ordinary cultivators. Senior Meng Tian, disciple Tianma Luo, is here to challenge the white-robed Shenxi. Senior Meng Tian, are you trying to bully the weak? Although Tianma Luo was afraid of Meng Tian, he believed that Meng Tian would not attack him. After all, Meng Tian's seniority made him fearless. Rumble. Sect leader Bution suddenly appeared. He looked at Tianma Luo with a cold expression. He wanted to kill him with a slap, but Tianma Luo was the successor of the sky-devouring Devil Palace. If he personally suppressed him, he would be labeled as a bully. Moreover, the sky-devouring demonic palace would not sit by and do nothing when the older generation attacked the younger generation. Although Meng Tian was not afraid of the sky-devouring demonic palace, the palace was backed by the sky-devouring demonic lord. Such a ferocious person indeed made Meng Tian extremely wary. The white-robed Shenxi is in seclusion. He's not accepting any challenges. Go back to where you came from. Meng Tian said coldly. Senior Meng Tian, you must be joking. The white-robed Shenxi is famous in the chaos space. I'm here because I admire him, and I want to spar with him. Senior Meng Tian, are you looking down on me? Do you think Tianma Luo is not a match for the white-robed Shenxi? Tianma Luo paused for a moment before changing the topic. Or does your sect look down on my heaven-devouring devil palace? Do you think that the white-robed godchild will be the strongest in the next eon? Do you think that the heaven-mending sect will become the strongest orthodoxy in the 11th eon? Heavenly Demon Luo's words were full of malicious intent. He clearly knew that sect master Bution would not attack him, so his words were full of traps. No matter how sect master Bution responded, the heaven-mending sect would fall into a predicament. Junior, you have a sharp tongue. Do you really think I don't dare to suppress you here? What kind of person was sect leader Bution? He knew that this junior was using words to provoke him, but as the leader of a sect, he naturally wouldn't lose his composure because of a few words. Meng Tian was Meng Tian's he, and that was Meng. Meng sect, what I said is the truth. I didn't come here today to provoke your sect. I just want to meet the white-robed Shenxi and discuss Tao with him. After that, I'll turn around and leave. I won't dare to be disrespectful to your sect, Tianma Luo said in a deep voice. At this moment, sect master Bution's expression became colder and colder. He really wanted to slap the other party to death, but he was also hesitating whether or not he should attack. If Lu Bai had not fallen into a deep slumber, he would have naturally sent this person away. However, now that Lu Bai had a problem, there was simply no one in the younger generation of the heaven-mending sect who was a match for this celestial demon Luo. As for the Immortal Realm elders that had opened the fourth heavenly gate, they could naturally beat them back. However, This would give them the reputation of bullying the weak. Moreover, the outside world would think that the heaven-mending sect had no successors. Just as sect master Bution was hesitating, the sound of footsteps rang out from behind him, accompanied by a calm voice. You want to challenge Lu Bai? Do you have the qualifications? Yi Xian quietly appeared, and even the heaven-mending sect master wasn't able to catch his trajectory. As for the heavenly demon Luo, his expression also changed as he looked at Yi Xian with bewilderment. Very strong, very strong. The heavenly demon Luo felt threatened by Yi Xian. It was a great threat. He could see that Yi Xian's cultivation was only at the first heavenly gate, which was a bit weaker than him. However, for some reason, Yi Xian gave him an extremely heavy pressure. You're not Lu Bai. Who are you? Tianma Luo asked in a deep voice. Yi Xian was wearing black, which did not match Lu Bai's image at all. Who I am is not important. What's important is that you dared to disturb Brother Bai. Today you're destined to die. Yi Xian spoke very calmly. However, within his calm words, there was an extremely sinister and vicious killing intent. When he found out that there was a problem with Lu Bai, and that it was a huge problem at that, Yi Xian's mood was extremely bad. When Yi Xian was in a bad mood, he was destined to be very cruel. Anyone who provoked him would not have a good ending. Although Tianma Luo was a little afraid of the pressure that Yi Xian gave him, he was a prideful person. He was the successor of the heaven-devouring demonic palace, and had cultivated the heaven-devouring demonic technique. Although he was not considered a top figure among the younger generation, he boasted that he was one of the top figures. Yi Xian dared to talk to him in such a way, which aroused his ferocious nature. He was determined to let Yi Xian have a taste of his power. He looked at Yi Xian, as if he was looking at a dead man. I've seen too many trash like you. Killing you will simply stain my hands. However, since you disturbed Lu Bai, I can only kill you with my own hands. Boom! His palm shook the heavens and earth, and his 5 fingers covered the sky. Yi Xian didn't waste any words. His 5 fingers covered the heavens and earth as he slapped towards the heavenly demon Luo. That vast and terrifying power even caused the heavens and earth to explode, causing the heavenly demon Luo to be even more shocked. He didn't expect Yi Xian's combat strength to be so terrifying. Heaven-devouring demonic technique. Yi Xian's attack was enough to force Tianma Luo to perform the heaven-devouring demonic technique. He could feel how terrifying Yi Xian's attack was. It was very likely that Yi Xian would severely injure him. Yi Xian was definitely a peerless enemy. Rumble. The purpose of the heaven-devouring demonic technique was to plunder. Tianma Luo performed this technique to devour Yi Xian's attack and return it to Yi Xian with the stellar transposition. Bang! Yi Xian's palm landed on Tianma Luo's head. Tianma Luo did not dodge at all because the heaven-devouring demonic technique was to absorb the power of others to nourish oneself. You're really naive to dare to fight me with your body. Under my heaven-devouring demonic technique, you will surely turn into ashes. Tianma Luo grinned hideously. He unleashed the heaven-devouring demonic technique in an attempt to assimilate Yi Xian's attack into his body and devour Yi Xian's cultivation. However, in the next moment, Tianma Luo's face turned pale, and he let out a miserable shriek. He finally realized that Yi Xian's attack did not contain any power. Instead, an extremely terrifying devouring power erupted from his palm. His flesh and blood were rapidly melting, and his divine soul was cracking. Heaven-devouring demonic technique? How do you know the heaven-devouring demonic technique? No. Tianma Luo screamed miserably. If his heaven-devouring demonic technique was a stream, then Yi Xian's heaven-devouring demonic technique was a boundless sea. There was no comparison at all. He was completely crushed. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.